Hi, welcome back guys, this is your friend, WTFW with another fiction. What if Deku defying the odds in a superpowered world? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Suo. As third-year students, the teacher in class begins to say in an almost bored tone, "It's time to start thinking seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives. I could pass out some career aptitude tests, but why bother?" This gets almost everyone in the class pumped up, each one of them starting up their quirks. With a flourish, the teacher throws the papers in the air without a care. "I know you all want to go to the hero track." Almost everyone begins cheering and displaying their quirks. Yes, you all have some very impressive quirks. While he says that, it's questionable what some of the students' quirks being called impressive, such as being able to stretch your eyes out of your head, inflating your head, stretching your neck, and so on. But no power usage allowed in school. Get a hold of yourselves. He finishes to calm down his class. "Hey, teach." The golden child of Alder Junior High School begins to say, his spiky blonde hair and red eyes blazing with cockiness as he lays back in his chair with his feet kicked up on the table. "Don't lump me in with this bunch of losers. I'm the real deal. But these guys'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some busted D-lister. Ha." Bakugo Katsuki finishes, speaking with a laugh. This sparks the ire of the class, of course, as they all shout in anger, and even threw some threats of fights right then and there. "Huh, you've got impressive test results. Maybe you will get into UA High." The teacher's words makes everyone freeze and only makes Bakugo's ego soar higher. "He's gonna try for the national school," one female student comments above all others amidst the chatter. "That place has only a 2% acceptance rate. It's impossible to get into. That's exactly why it's the only place worthy of me." Bakugo cuts through the chatter before flipping himself up and landing on his desk before adopting a stance. "I aced all of the mock tests. I'm the only one at this school who stands a chance at getting in. I'll end up more popular than All Might himself and be the richest hero of all time," he loudly and gleefully declares before gripping his hand into a fist. "People all across the world will know who I am. And it all starts with UA High. Oh yeah, Midoriya, don't you want to go to UA too?" "Gah!" A small meek squeak can be heard. Izuku Midoriya, having had his head down on his desk and trying to keep out of everyone's line of sight, slowly peeks his head up, his eyes peeking through the black and green-tipped locks of his hair as he notices all eyes on him in a moment. Ha 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 ha. And just like that, almost everyone in the class begins laughing out loud at the idea of quirkless Izuku getting into UA of all schools. "Midoriya, you're kidding, right? There's no way you're getting into the hero course without a quirk." The students dogpile on him like that. Well, actually, they got rid of that rule. Izuku stands up to address everyone amidst their laughs. "I could be the first one." Even so, as he speaks, one could tell the nervousness he has. Of course, one person is far more angry than amused by this turn of events. Bakugo growls as he slams his palm into Izuku's desk, making it explode and forcing him to fall back onto the ground. "Listen up, Deku." Izuku stares up in fear at seeing Bakugo standing over him. "You're even worse than the rest of these damn rejects, you quirkless wannabe. You really think they'd let someone like you in when they could have me? And also, take to Jason you too, right?" Everyone shuts up at the next name drop. Nearly everyone freezes as they slowly turn their heads to the person sitting to the right side of Izuku. Sitting there impassively with his arms crossed, sitting straight with his lips pressed together. Bakugo turns, angrily staring at the person as subtle explosive pops can be seen from his hands. The neutral look he has changes to subtlest hint of smirk on his face, his blue eyes taking a small sheen to them in readiness as he turns around. The school day ends. Everyone has already started filing out of the classroom and get ready to head home or to make plans to hang out with friends. Izuku sits at his desk, placing his stuff back in his bag before he filters through the news feeds from a certain hero and villain fight he saw earlier. Man, that fight from this morning is all over the news. Better write some notes down before I forget anything, he says as he puts his phone away and gets ready to start writing stuff down in his quirk notebook. Anything and everything that has to do with quirks from anyone he's seen or met is right there in his book. From observations he's seen to confirmed theories of whatever he's seen. Ah, and it was just ripped right from his hand. Craning his head up reveals the taker to be none other than Bakugo. I don't know what you think you're doing, Deku, but we're not done. No, we are done. A hand comes up from behind and swipes the notebook out from his hand. Rage fills Bakugo as he whirls around on the person messing with him. His anger only deepens as he glares at the person. Oh, one of Bakugo's cronies mutters at the renewed tenseness they feel. Even Izuku shakes nervously at the possibility of what might happen. Jason stands there in front of Bakugo, holding the notebook belonging to Izuku. If you know what's good for you, you'll give that back, Bakugo menacingly states as he holds out his hand with a scowl. Jason stands there, holding the book and glaring at Bakugo, before adopting a small smile. Sure. That surprises everyone, even Bakugo, as Jason motions to hand it to him. But he whips it away and walks past him and right up to his friend. Here you go, Izu. I thought should give this back to you. Izuku stares in awe at having his quirk book back in his hands before staring at his friend, giving him a genuine smile back at him. Hold on to that more tightly. Don't want you losing it now, don't we? Izuku nods before stuffing it back into his bag and zipping it up. His moment of happiness turns to worry and nervousness as he sees the angry glare Bakugo is giving to the back of his friend. The glare turns to a grin before Bakugo eases up on the anger, almost staring with an exasperated look. I shouldn't be surprised at this point, Deku. Everywhere you go, nearly every time I see you, this mutt is always here ready to come to your beck and call. Mutt. Izuku has the derogatory nickname of Deku, while Jason has Mutt, due to him staying close to Izuku whenever Bakugo gets close to Izuku. You really shouldn't bother applying to you, the both of you. Bakugo takes a more relaxed stance as he keeps talking. No way they'll take either of you, being quirkless and all, but also being downright pathetic. Deku I can see being killed right off the bat at the entrance exam. But the mutt I can see maybe surviving enough to get a single point before he croaks. Honestly, you should put those instincts of yours to actual use and be a cop. I'm sure you'll be good enough to a traffic cop's partner. This earns a small chuckle from Bakugo himself and laughter from his buddies. Jason continues to keep his back to him, while Izuku looks a little downtrodden. Bakugo turns around and begins walking away. You know, Deku, if you really want to be a hero that badly, there actually might be another way. Bakugo gives one last piece of advice before he leaves. Just pray that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life. Then take a swan dive off the roof of the building. A low growl can be heard. Then it turns to some light chuckling. Bakugo and his guys look on confused before Jason turns around with a smirk on his face. All talk. That's what you're reduced to now, aren't you, Bakugo? He says with a smile, making the explosive quirk user that much angrier. You just can't help but stroke your own ego, can you? Slowly Jason begins walking closer to him, passing the other two students before stopping in front of him. That's all you can do now, is it? Not when we're so close to the end now, are we? Better watch what you say, mutt, if you know what's good for you. A dark look falls over Bakugo as his fingers flex. Make me, if you can. Jason's fists clench tightly, bones popping as he does. The two students step back, while Izuku stares completely scared and worried at what's about to happen. Another person steps into view of the door. School's over now. It's time to get going, all of you. Their principal walks up, appearing through the door from the hallway and letting all of them know. He gets a cross look at seeing the two students glaring at each other. Remember what we said, you two. One more, and you're both done got it. Bakugo stares at Jason with subdued anger. Crystal, sir. Jason stares at Bakugo with a glare, his smirk having been gone as soon as he heard the teacher walking up. Whatever. Bakugo turns away with a scoff and walks off, his two cronies following after him. He's not going to lose his chance to get into UA just for some quirkless in his mind. Jason relaxes and gestures back to Izuku. Come on, Izu, let's get going. I don't want to get held up by another villain attack like this morning. The green-haired boy's nervousness from before about the situation melts away to excitement at the idea of witnessing another chance to see heroes in action. Oh, come on. That was a pretty good fight, and you know it. He jogs to catch up to his best friend. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean I want to be late to school again. But school's already over for the day. That's besides the point. The principal sighs as he pinches the bridge of his nose and walks off. A few minutes later, and the two of them have already made their way out of the school and heading to their houses walking side by side. A closer look would show that despite being the same age, Jason is just a little more fleshed out with some muscle and is half a head taller than Izuku. You know, I really wish you wouldn't continue to pick fights with Kaken like that. Jason sighs a little. Yeah, sure. I'll do that as soon as he suddenly turns back to being our friend again. You know I can tell when you're being sarcastic, right? He rolls his eyes at his friend. Besides, you know the two of you are already in hot water with the school. One more fight on school grounds and you're both expelled. Izuku tries to reason with his friend. Jason slowly nods as he remembers. For quite a while now, both Jason and Bakugo have been at each other's throats for too long, resulting in some teachers needing to break them up and some possible damage to school property. Bakugo may have his quirk to fight, but Jason's own mixed combat training allows him to be able to fight him, but only just because the explosive quirk's sheer power, giving him just barely the chance to take on the egotistical jerk. That's what got Jason a sort of reputation in school. Anytime anyone tries to bully or fight him, just because he was quirkless would soon find that he is just good enough in a scrap to take down most people. I know. That's why I'm not going to throw the first punch. The school's still going to expel both of you no matter who starts it. Jakun. He deadpans to his friend. Izuku gave Kaken to Bakugo and simply gave Jakun to Jason. Yeah, I guess you're right. Jason relents with a sigh. The both of them fall into a small silence as they continue to make their way to their houses. Thanks again for getting my notebook back. Jason smiles and nods. No problem, Izu. No way am I going to let your hard work get destroyed so easily. Izuku spent a while putting entries into his quirk book, as his friend Jason wasn't going to stand by and watch it get destroyed. You still going to apply to UA? Definitely. Since they lifted that rule to allow quirkless people to apply, I could be the first to get in. If we both go, we both can make history and be the first ones to get in. You're still applying too, right, Jakun? Izuku enthusiastically asks his friend, almost jumping in place as they take a moment to stop. Well, if you're going to apply, I can't leave my friend hanging now, can I? He gests to his friend and lightly taps his shoulder with the top of his knuckles. Besides, I'm sure it'll be a nice challenge to keep up with UAS standards. You and your training. They continue walking, eventually coming up to a tunnel. Keep exercising, and you'll be as buff as All Might. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Jason snickers at his friend's attempt at recreating All Might's famous laugh. Jason himself isn't as major a fan as his friend Izuku is when it comes to All Might. In fact, he's starting to feel maybe just a little bit annoyed with the hero considering how his best friend never stops talking about the guy. But he wouldn't trade his friend for anyone else ever. That's good, man. Keep working on that, and you'll get it perfectly. You mean that wasn't spot on? Izuku yells, making them stop in the middle of the tunnel. I could have sworn I got it down. I worked so hard on that. Maybe I should try. Jason lets out a sigh but smiles nonetheless at his friend falling into his mumbling state as he begins writing in his notebook again. While some find it annoying, he knows the green-haired boy can get some of his best ideas when in that state. But they have to go, so Jason reaches out to tap his friend. Biara, ahahaha. Jason yells as a mass of something knocks him down to the ground. He groans as he hits the ground and lays there for a second before regaining his senses. What the hell, what was? He begins to question as he looks. A look of horror forms on his face. His eyes widen. His breathing stops as he stares. A villain. A large mess of green sludge with a distinct mess of a face forming on the top part of the pile of sludge, with Izuku wrapped up in the middle of it. Izuku? Jason calls out his friend, hoping and praying in his head that what he's seeing is not real. The only answer he gets is the strangled, muffled cries of his friend as a large eye in the sludge peers at him. Oh, don't mind me, kid. A grotesque morphed voice can be heard inside the sludge as large gnash's teeth can be seen atop of it as it speaks. I'm just going to take over this little guy's body and wear him as a skin suit. That's my friend. Get off of him. Jason flies into a rage and climbs to his feet before charging the two. Smack. Gra! He screams as large sludgy tentacle smacks into him and sends him back to the ground. It'll be easier for all of us if you don't fight back, either of you. Jason groans at the voice grating on his nerves as his fists clench tightly and he grits his teeth. It'll only hurt for a minute. You'll feel better soon, then we can be on our merry way. I can't breathe. Izuku's thoughts come in distress as he desperately tries to pull the sludge that's pooling into his mouth. Every second that passes sends Jason angrier and angrier as he watches tears pool in his friend's eyes. I said get off him, he yells and charges again. This time when the villain tries to hit him, he remembers and ducks under the swipe. Elation fills him just a little, just for a moment, as he grabs onto his friend and desperately grabs handfuls of the sludge. I got you, he yells as both he and Izuku try to tear away the sludge. Unfortunately, despair fills Jason as the sludge just parts away from his fingers. Damn it. The villain lets out a laugh at their efforts. Grab all you want. My body's made of fluid. Jason stops clawing as he stares at his friend, a scared to death look on his face as no amount of grabbing can remove the villain from him. But maybe I can block him. His hand flies up to Izuku's mouth and covers it with one hand. The villain looks on annoyed as his means of entering the kid is just cut off. As the sludge doubles its efforts in trying to pass through his fingers, Jason tightly presses his lips together as he places both hands over Izuku's mouth, preventing the villain from taking over his friend. You stupid little. Smack. Ah! Jack grh. The villain sends another tentacle at Jason, nailing him hard in the chest and sending him flying back harder than before. Izuku only had a moment to call out to his friend in worry before he's silenced again by the villain. Jason goes through the air before impacting the wall. His vision goes white in pain as his back hits the wall, and he collapses to the ground in a heap. His body twitches as he tries to move, but the sudden impact on his back makes him barely able to move. It also doesn't help that he can't breathe. He can't hear the villain talk as he tries to choke air back into his lungs after having the air knocked out of them. His vision blurs and is hazy as he desperately tries to get his bearings. Through his vision, he barely manages to see the forms of the villain and his friend, his struggling, dying friend. Izuku, he weakly calls out, futilely reaching his hand out to help. Help, someone, help him. He can only rasp out before his arm falls onto the ground. He starts to breathe a little easier, but the pain is throbbing in his head harshly, making him barely able to hear the new sounds as his eyes close. He can somewhat make out voices speaking, people moving, and when he looks up, Smosh! NGH. He's forced to try to cover his head as a large gust of wind blasts all over him, pushing him into the ground and whipping his loose clothes a little. Once the wind dissipates, he relaxes and slowly looks up as the pain recedes. Young man, are you okay? A large figure kneels in front of him. As his vision starts to come back to him, he sucks in a large lungful of air, finally getting his breathing back in order as he tries to push himself up. Whoa there, easy does it. You're safe now. Safe. A hand is placed on his back as he pushes himself to his hands and knees. Safe, Jason manages to say as he takes deep lungfuls of air. You got it. Jason almost freezes at the loud voice, distinctly remembering he heard it from somewhere before. No, I definitely heard that voice before. His certain green-haired friend having seen enough videos to bun it into Jason's head. He looks up, catching the sight of the number one hero standing right there in front of him. All Might in a way too tight t-shirt and baggy green pants and brown shoes. His blonde hair with several strands of his hair pointing up like horns in front and his ever-present smile. The man himself gives him a slightly wider smile, if he can somehow manage that, and a thumbs up. Jason stares dumbly at the man, his mouth slightly agape at what he is seeing. Slowly he stands up to his full height, still staring, which makes All Might sweat a little at the odd behavior before Jason's mouth closes. He looks around slowly for a second before spotting something lying on the ground. He makes his way to it in his still slow manner. Ooh, All Might questions, a little worried at the odd behavior that the kid is acting, and thinking he may have suffered some brain trauma from the villain attack. He watches as the kid reaches down and picks up a notebook, laying the ground before walking back up to him and extending his arms outwards to All Might with a notebook in hand. Here, my friend is your biggest fan. He wants your autograph, Jason tells the hero. Really now? All Might asks curiously at the object. Yes, Izuku. At once Jason lets go of the notebook, letting it flip in the air, which All Might grabs, as Jason turns around and sprints over to his friend laying on the ground. Izu. He calls for his friend again, but gets no response. Quickly he drops to his friend's left side and checks to see if he has a pulse, both on his neck and wrists. Pulse is strong. He places his head against his chest and listens for a heartbeat and his lungs to make triple sure. Heart beating, and I can hear him breathing. Finally, he moves his hands close to his mouth and nose and sighs in relief when he feels the air exhaling from him. Oh, thank God, yes, he yells to himself. He's okay. He turns to All Might standing there next to the two of them with his trademark smiles clear as day. Without hesitation, Jason bows his head all the way to the ground on his knees in gratitude. You saved him. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, sir. Oh, come now. That's just what heroes do. No need to thank me. Still, Jason trails off as he sits up. Izuku's notebook moves into his vision. The book opened up to a page with All Might's signature written clear as day on it across both pages. Awe crosses Jason's face as he takes the notebook before a smile graces his own lips and looks up at the number one hero. He's going to go ballistic when he sees this. I imagine so. Ha ha ha. All Might laughs for a moment with his head craned back before looking down at them. Well, we should go ahead and wake him to make sure he's okay. All Might steps to Izuku's right. Wait, I got an idea. All Might looks on curiously at what the idea the boy in front of him has. Jason leans forward until he leans in real close to Izuku's ear. Izu, All Might wants to adopt you as his son. What? Not even a second later and Izuku bolts up, knocking Jason to the ground before he's suddenly grabbed and pulled back up by his now surprisingly strong meek friend. Does he really want to? He asks with sparks of joy in his eyes and a wide smile. He deflates a little and stops as he sees the wide grin his friend has. Why do you torture me so? Instantly he knows the joke Jason played on him. Because I needed to get you up. Why? Izuku asks confused. Jason simply tilts his head towards behind Izuku. The recently unconscious boy turns around and sees legs, before slowly craning his head to see the face of the person. "Hi, glad to see you up," All Might says with a small, simple hand wave. "Ah!" It takes a second before Izuku screams as he falls to the ground and backpedals away from the hero. "Well, looks like you're moving around all right. I didn't say before, but sorry about that back there," All Might says, talking about the villain attack only moments ago. "I didn't mean to get you caught up in my justicing." Jason mutters the word justicing under his breath, trying to picture the word in a dictionary as All Might continues. "Usually, I pay more attention to keeping bystanders safe, but it turns out this city's sewer system is pretty difficult to navigate." Ha, 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 ha. Navigating the sewer, Jason mutters before turning back to the tunnel, seeing the lid of a manhole cover having been popped off. He stares incredulously at the idea of the number one hero trudging through sewage, and yet the man before him is spotless. Izuku, meanwhile, is still coming to terms with his all-time hero right in front of him. "Anyway, you both were a big help. Thank you. I've captured the evil doer," All Might proclaims as he holds up a couple soda bottles holding the villain. "Yoink!" Jason grabs one of the bottles from All Might and stares at it closely. "Hey, careful with that." The most amazing hero in the entire world, Izuku thinks, still in awe at the hero. Not even bothered to make a comment as Jason proceeds to shake the bottle rapidly, making the villain inside the bottle that much more greener from sickness as All Might tries to take the bottle from him before he accidentally releases the villain. All Might, the real thing, in the flesh. Standing right in front of me, Jason yelps as a bright flash beams off of All Might pearly whites, giving the hero the chance to regrab the bottle without getting too handsy on the bystander. He looks so much cooler in person. Izuku's thoughts continue unperturbed at the scene, even as Jason smiles at having to cause just a little bit of torment to the villain. "Holy crap. I gotta get an autograph. I've got a pen around here somewhere." Izuku frantically checks his person for said pen, and then for his notebook. Jason finally steps up and hands him his notebook back. He smiles at his friend before turning to All Might. "Please sign my notebook," he opens it. "Ah, ma, he already did." He squeals at seeing the signature. "Thank you so much." Jason stares at his friend incredulously as he proceeds to do 100 bows in less than 30 seconds. This will be an heirloom. A family treasure passed down for generations to come. "Dude, chill. You're going to give yourself an aneurysm going like that," Jason says as he grabs him, stopping him from breaking the world record for most bows done in the shortest amount of time as possible. All Might still gives them a thumbs up at their antics. "Welp, I've got to get this guy to the police so they can take care of him." He pats the soda bottle prison nestled in his pants pocket before turning his back to them. "Stay out of trouble. See you around." "Thanks again, All Might." Jason thanks him and chuckles a little at seeing All Might doing some squats. "Wait, you're leaving? Already?" Izuku asks in slight disbelief. Jason can already tell that his friend is disheartened at seeing his favorite hero is going to be cut short already. Pro heroes are constantly fighting time as well as enemies. Jason nods a little at that, can't really faulting that line of thought. Only so many places heroes can be at a time anyway, even one as All Might. "Now stand back. I'm taking off." On reflex, Jason turns his head away and covers his face with the crook of his arm, just as a large gust of wind hits him. Not enough to knocking him down, but enough to burn the eyes if he had them open. A quick look back shows All Might gone. "Thanks for your continued support." Looking up, he sees the now flying hero, that is All Might soaring high above. Jason lets out a chuckle at seeing the hero before crossing his arms. "You know, Izuku, I may not be as big an All Might fan as you. He sure is something else, huh?" "Izu?" He looks to the side when he doesn't get an answer and finds himself alone. "Izu?" He looks around more frantically. "Where the hell did you Ah, he freezes and cranes his head back up, hearing a scream get quieter and quieter as the speck gets further away. It only takes a second for Jason to put the pieces together, and his eyes widen, his face turns to one of horror. Izuku, you crazy mother. He quickly pulls out his phone as he begins sprinting in the direction he saw them go. Okay, they went in this direction. If I can track Izuku's phone, I can find where they landed. He surmises to himself as he continues running, putting most of his cardio training to work to reach his best friend. I am, really, hating this, right? Now Jason's thoughts come sporadic as he continues to run through the streets. While he's been exercising for a bit now, he hasn't focused on his cardio training as much as he would like and is feeling a little out of breath. It also doesn't help he immediately took off without preparing himself to run, nor the fact he's starting to get sore again from the hit to his ribs earlier ago. But damn it all, is he going to simply go home without making sure his best friend is okay after his unexpected airborne hitchhike to who knows where? Izuku was his best friend, and he was going to do everything in his power to protect his friend whenever he can. Really, hating this. Jason grumbles as he trudges up to the building he was led to. He just has to get to his friend first. Jason takes a second to get his breathing under control as he stares up the structure. A quick look back at his phone shows his friend's phone signal is coming the building, as well as remembering the direction that All Might took off in. Due to being friends with the #1 All Might fan of all time, Jason knows that the hero himself can't really fly. But his strength and ability just allows him to jump really high and really far. He takes one more calming deep breath as he pockets his phone. All right, now I just have to find him. He walks in and immediately looks for the stairs. They were flying through the air, so naturally they would land on the roof. Just have to find. There we go. He smiles as he spots the door to the stairs and runs to them. Just as he makes it to the door that it flies open, and he barely stops himself from getting hit. Whoa, he yelps in surprise at the door opening. Ah, the man, who looks like a thin skeleton of a man, to be honest, in too baggy clothes, freezes as he sees Jason right in front of him. Jason looks at the man oddly before getting his senses back. Hey, excuse me, have you seen a 14-year-old boy in the building? Green hair, a little meek, wearing the same uniform as me? He gestures to the school uniform he is wearing. The man coughs for a second before stepping out of the door and thumbing back to the stairs. Yeah, I saw him on the roof. I was doing some maintenance when All Might dropped off the kid and left. He should be on his way down. Great, thanks. Jason quickly thanks him before bolting through the doorway. A few seconds pass before Jason slowly pokes his head out the door again, seeing the back of the man slowly trudge his way to the main doors of the building. Huh. Jason mutters in confusion and slight curiosity, getting a weird but not bad feeling from the man he just met. He shakes his head before continuing up the steps. Minutes later, the quirkless duo have reunited and are making their way along the sidewalk towards home. He said what? Jason almost screams as he learns the news of what the #1 hero said to his best friend. It's okay, Jakun. You don't have to get so worked up. Let's be honest. I think I was just kidding myself all this time, and you were being a good friend supporting me. I guess I just wanted to try to prove to myself that I could be hero, even though I don't have quirk. But if All Might said it. Izuku's downtrodden expression gets deeper as he thumbs the pages of his hero analysis for the future #13 notebook before eventually closing it. Izuku tries to keep the tears from pooling in his eyes, but he quickly wipes them away. Fuck him. Jakun, Izuku shouts in surprise at his friend's cursing, even as he talks about All Might of all people. No, Izu. I was always willing to go with your dream of being a hero, and I'm always ready to back you up on that. If you still want to be a hero, then no one's opinion, not even All Might's, should stop you. Jason passionately tells his friend. From the amount of times that Izuku has always talked about being a hero, Jason refuses to believe that now, of all times, no matter who it is, that his friend should just give up being a hero without actually trying. He continues to walk for a few more steps until he realizes he's walking alone. Oof. As he turns, something barrels into him. He's about ready to hurt whoever crashed into him until he realizes it's his friend hugging him. No words are exchanged as Jason smiles and returns his friend's hug. They stay like that for a few seconds before they separate and continues walking. Izuku sniffs a little with a small smile on his face. Thanks. No problem, man. Jason pats his shoulder. They continue on in silence for some uncomfortable amount of minutes until they hear a small explosion go off. They both stop and look to see a large gathering of people nearby with what looks like another villain's fight going on. A villain? Wait, wasn't there a fight here this morning? Jason asks as he glances around the familiar area. It is. Is the fight from earlier still going on? I don't think so. They had the guy in custody when we left, so I doubt it's the same fight that continued until now. Jason muses as he gets a thoughtful look. Izuku, meanwhile, gets a depressed, forlorn look as he gazes at the crowd. Why are we here? Did I subconsciously walk us this way to check it out? He thinks depressingly as they wait for the light to give them the go-ahead. Come on, let's go see. Wah hey, Izuku shouts as his stronger friend grabs his wrist and pulls him quickly across the street. Come on, man. You're never in a bad move whenever you're examining quirks. Let's get that brain of yours turning and focused on something else. Jason explains as they make it to the back of the crowd. But I don't. Here, I'll get you started. This alleyway is too small for Mount Lady to come in and steal the show. So who else can you see taking down villains in here? Jason asks as he tries to get an angle amidst the crowd. Izuku himself, though, just stares at his friend before he gets a genuine smile on his face, glad to see his friend doing what he can to elevate his mood. Okay, well, we know Death Arms and Kamui Woods were here earlier, so maybe. No way. Yes, I'm sure they can. Izuku begins to analyze until his friend roughly grabs him and forces him to look forward instead of at his notebook. He's about to question why, until his eyes widen at the scene before him. A familiar giant green sludge monster can be seen rampaging in the alleyway amidst many patches of fire scattered about. That's the guy who attacked us. He reminds his friend next to him, who nods grimly at the memory. Yeah, it is. But how in the hell is he out? Jason asks. Izuku's breath hitches as he remembers the little joyride he took with All Might when he saved him. In his attempts to hold on, the bottle carrying the villain must have dropped. But the bottle, if he dropped it, he gets a horrified look at the realization. That means it's my fault. Izuku snaps out of his thoughts as he hears his friend say. Glancing over, he's surprised to see his friend slowly placing his hands on his head, a frustrated look about him. If I hadn't grabbed the bottle, if I hadn't shook it, I must have loosened the cap. And he curls his fingers in, gripping his hair in handfuls at his stupid move. Why aren't the heroes doing anything? A man nearby asks. This causes them both the freeze. It looks like they've met their match. Plus, the villains captured a kid. Things aren't looking good for him. Both quirkless boys stare at the men talking before turning back to the villain, attempting to take a much more careful look at the villain. True enough, they see a small head of hair sticking out of the villain as it thrashes about. Both boys' despair deepen at the realization that now someone else has gotten caught up in the villain and has the potential to die. Nearby, sharing in their despair, is the deflated form of All Might, unable to buff up and save the captured kid due to having reached his limit for the day. All three blame each other in their own heads in various ways, but no doubt all feel the pain of either their uselessness of the situation or the fault of them messing up on the villain's capture. Thing is, between the three of them, only one of them looks up. His eyes lock onto Bakugo Katsuki's eyes, the hostage of the sludge, and he sees one thing in them: Fear. "Wait, kid," a hero calls out. All Might's despair turns to surprise and shock, even more so than the crowd. "Izuku." But none more so than Jason as he calls out to his friend. Izuku Midoriya bolts through the crowd of people, past the barriers and past the heroes, heading straight for the villain without a single bit of hesitation. "No, you idiot, stop. You're gonna get yourself killed," Death Arms futilely calls out. "Not this brat again." The Sludge villain growls out in annoyance. "Deku?" Bakugo groans in disbelief. Despite it all, Izuku continues to run towards them. "What am I doing?" he questions in his head. "Why am I running? Why can't I stop?" he shouts in his head despite not stopping or slowing down at all. "You're toast, kid," the villain shouts as he gets ready to strike Izuku. "What do I do? What would a hero do right now?" he questions. Suddenly flashes of his quirk analysis notebook appear in his mind, more specifically to a page belonging to Kamui Woods. Page 25. Right. The villains stop his strike as he sees Izuku spin around as he runs. "Take this." This cost him as Izuku took the opportunity to pull his backpack off his back and toss it right towards the eyes of the villain. His tactic works as several of the bag's contents fly out and impact the villain's eye, making him recoil and growl out in anger. This gives the opportunity for Bakugo to free his mouth and cough. "Kaken," Izuku shouts to the captive and rapidly begins to tear at the sludge holding him. "What the hell? Why are you here?" Bakugo angrily asks now that he's got the opportunity to speak. "I dunno. My legs, they just started moving." Even through it all, as Izuku desperately tries to free him, memories of before flood his mind. All the things from before, from the doubt, the disbelief, the lack of confidence, the bullying, everything that nearly everyone has done to put him down and crush his dreams brings itself to the forefront of his mind, giving just one question to ask himself. Why did I rush in? I couldn't just stand there and watch you die. It's a simple answer, but it's a good answer. You brat. The sludge villain finally gets himself together and glares at Izuku. I'm done with you. He brings one of his arms around and gets ready to hit Izuku, intending to crush him, much to the horror of the child himself. Stop. Hey. Blua. The villain grunts as a glass beer bottle slams into his face. Izuku and Bakugo look down the alleyway. Remember me. Their eyes widen as Jason sprints towards them, having just barely dodged the outstretched hands of Death Arms and another hero before they could grab him. Jason reaches down, scooping up more glass bottles and tossing them one after another with wide swings of his arm. They flip through the air until they slam into the villain, messing up his form and making him even angrier as he glares at the annoying kid from earlier. You little brat, he shouts in anger and attacks. Jaken, Izuku shouts to his friend as a couple sludge tentacles head for his friend. This time, though, Jason sports a look as they come at him. Not a scared look, not an angry look, a focused look. Before the first one can hit him, he barely ducks under the appendage, before coming out from under it to the side. The second appendage comes towards him too, but he dodges to the right, able to avoid it. Several more tentacles head for him, but as he passes by a couple trash cans, he rolls over the top of them, grabbing the lids as he rolls over and puts both of them in front of him, one in each hand. The tentacles slam into his makeshift shields, but he doesn't let that deter him as pushes them off to the side and continues running to the villain. As several more blasts of sludge head for him, he uses his trashcan shields one after another, tanking the hits, but with angled grace, allowing him to push the attacks off to the side so he can keep going. Izuku, along with the heroes and civilians alike, stare in awe, seeing him push his way to the villain without stopping. I'm gonna turn you to a crisp. His eyes widen in fear as he turns back to the villain, seeing him forcibly raise Bakugo's arm, even as the boy struggles to stop him, before beginning to activate his quirk as small pops can be seen on the outstretched hand. Jaken, Izuku shouts to his friend. Jason stops at the shout as he spots the telltale signs of the familiar violent quirk he's been subjected to for a long time now. The explosions goes off. Jason's eyes widen before he steels himself and brings his arms up just as the explosion blast reaches him. The blast hits him, throwing flames and smoke all around, momentarily obscuring everyone to what just happened. More specifically, what happened to quirkless child that ran in. The villain grins at his triumph as he lowers Bakugo's arm. No, Izuku almost cries, the thought of losing his best friend beginning to etch itself to the front of his mind, as the only thing he and anyone else can see is the smoke cloud covering where his friend was. The only sound accompanying it is the smoke dissipating and the crackles of the fires nearby. Hurrah! Pushing through the smoke. Jason for a moment is airborne as he yells with his right lid shield held back behind him with the left held in front of him. Both of his impromptu shields are blackened from the scorch marks of the blast and dented. Jason, however, takes the opportunity of surprise, the villain having not anticipated him to survive the explosion. With a heave, he throws the right trash can lid towards the villain. The sludge villain grunts and groans as the lid impacts his eyes before burying into his sludgy body. With one last sprint, Jason covers the distance to them and makes it. Jaken, Izuku calls out in joy, seeing his friend safe and sound. Hurrah! With a shout, Jason shoves his last shield into the sludgy mess, attempting to cut through the mass of thick fluid. Damn it, Izuku. One of these days you're going to get me killed. He shouts in annoyance as he repeatedly slams the shield into the villain behind Bakugo. Well, come on, help me get him out of there. Jason snaps Izuku out when he notices he's not moving. All right, Izuku replies and goes to try to claw and grab handfuls of the sludge and prying it off of Bakugo. While not as effective as Jason is with the lid, it's still peeling some of it away as the villain focuses on trying to push the garbage out of him. What are you doing here, mutt? Bakugo manages to yell out once his mouth is clear. I'd like to question myself about that too, Jason begins to say in an annoyed tone before it turns into a wide grin. But apparently now I'm saving your ass, he yells as he cuts off more of the sludge from Bakugo from behind, allowing him to free his arm. Izu, grab his arm and pull. I gotcha. He grabs onto Bakugo's arm and begins to pull with all his strength as Jason grabs his shoulder and tries to pull him out. All three of them groan and strain as they just barely manage to slowly inch Bakugo out of the clutches of the villain. I'm getting really tired, but it's not enough of you brats interfering. The sludge villain shouts as he slowly regains himself, one of his eyes peering angrily at them. Not fast enough. Not fast enough. We can't pull him out fast enough. But maybe I can push him out. Not wanting to wait for the villain to strike them, Jason makes the insane move of pushing himself into the sludgy body of the villain. Izuku watches with stunned eyes as watches what his friend is doing. Jason places the lid behind him, putting a small barrier between him and the villain as he pulls both his legs up as he's behind Bakugo and pushes with all his might. Pull, Izuku, pull. The green-haired boy is knocked out of his stunned state and pulls with all his now renewed might. This time, with Jason having a more leveraged position and using his entire body, Bakugo is pushed out of the villain much faster than before. Oof! Both boys grunt as with one last exertion Bakugo is torn out of the villain's body. Bits of the sludge still cling to him, but melts away now that it's not connected to the main villain. Bakugo goes into a coughing fit now that he's out. Kaken, are you okay? Get off me, Deku, despite his anger. Bakugo makes no move to push Izuku off him as Izuku helps him to his feet. Glad you're okay, but what about Jaken? Bakugo's eyes widen at the loud voice of the normally quiet boy before turning around. While Bakugo was able to be pushed out, Jason is now swarmed in the clutches of the villain. The trash and lids that were thrown and pushed into the villain's body have been expelled, and now the villain tries to wrap itself around Jason. Jason himself has his eyes closed and a hand placed over his mouth and nose as the villain tries to get inside him. "You're really stupid, aren't you, kid? You got him out, but now you're trapped inside me," the villain boasts. Izuku looks on in fear for his friend while Bakugo stares in anger. "Now I'm going to use your quirk to destroy your friends. Say goodbye, brats." The villain lets out a loud, boisterous laugh and extends Jason's free arm towards the two boys. But nothing happens. "Huh? Wait, what?" the villain questions, much to the confusion of the heroes and civilians and slight satisfaction of the boys. "What's going on?" He shakes Jason's arm up and down, trying in vain to get his quirk to work. "Why isn't anything happening? Why can't I feel anything?" he should in anger. Amidst the angry rants of the villain, he gets cut off as everyone hears the sounds of laughter in the air, but it's muffled. It doesn't take long for people to find out, and notices it coming from the new hostage in the villain. Jason finishes laughing before slightly moving his hand, allowing him to talk. "You, stupid dumbass. You downgraded your hostage. You just got a quirkless as your hostage." The villain's eyes widen at the news. "Destroy him." Everyone flinches in shock at the loud voice Jason exudes and his request. "Don't worry about me. Just take him down now." The villain tries to move towards Bakugo again, making him and Izuku take a step back from the appendage coming to them. Except Jason reaches forward and tries to pull the sludge back to him, hindering its movements. "Do it, while you have the chance." He yells one more time as he does whatever he can keep the villain from grabbing his friend like the first time, hoping for him to escape. Yet he watches as Izuku stands his ground, not wanting to leave his friend behind despite the fear on his face, as the villain gets ready to swing one of his arms down on them. And Bakugo just looks pissed off and angry as he gets ready to try blow up the villain. "Admirable work, boys." Their eyes widen at the familiar voice. But you need not fear any longer. A figure blurs right in front of them, stopping the appendage from hitting the boys. All three of them stare in surprise as they the number one hero, All Might holding the villain back. He grabs onto Jason's arm through the sludge and rears his other arm back into a tight fist. The only thing they hear next is a large gust of wind, All Might's trademark smash move, and someone calling themselves pathetic. Minutes pass by, and the villain attack is over. For the kids who were a part of the villain attack, they were more or less knocked out from the proximity force of All Might's punch, but awoke not soon after. The fact that they were a little pelted with rain that All Might was miraculously able to make after his punch. The clouds formed and rain fell, waking the boys up and making them realize that they are no longer in the midst of a villain's clutches. Police officers and some of the heroes got to work in cleaning up the scattered remains of the sludge villain. The media and reporters immediately swarmed the number one hero, trying to get some form of interview with the guy as he smiles and waves to them. "Are you too crazy? You morons. Do you too have a death wish?" Meanwhile, the boys have been split up into two groups. Bakugo is sitting nearby, sulking and angry about the whole situation, while a couple heroes and some reporters are praising him for his bravery in the attack. While Jason with Izuku are sitting next to one another with Death Arms and Kamui Woods lecturing the two of them. "There was no reason you should have put yourselves in danger like that." While Izuku flinches at the tone, the heroes talk down to him with, he can't help but glance out of the side and look at his friend. He is more than a little confused when he sees the grin on Jason's face. "You could have easily gotten yourselves killed, and why are you smiling?" Death Arms asks, even angrier as he sees the smile on Jason's face, despite the talking to that he and Kamui Woods are saying to the two of them. His smile doesn't leave his face as Jason pushes himself up to stand in front of the two heroes. "Because no matter what you say, no matter how much you preach to us how reckless we were, the fact of the matter is, we did your job for you." He tells them with a straight face, making them look at him a little stunned. "We did. Two quirkless boys. We went in. We engaged the villain in order for us to defend and save another. when you all, fully licensed and experienced heroes, just stood back and did nothing. He adds the last part in a small whisper, even stepping closer to the heroes. You can't say anything to us because of how much you failed until you relied on All Might to end this. He glances and gives a quick hostile look to the number one hero before looking back at the ones in front of him. He smiles again and stepping back and picking up his backpack. Come on, Izuku. Let's get out of here. It's time we get home. Izuku scrambles to his feet as he grabs his own backpack as well so he can follow his friend. Jason already left the alleyway, but Izuku quickly stops and turns back to the heroes. Thank you for your help. Izuku thanks them and bows before running after his friend. For what good they did. Jakun. The heroes meanwhile don't stop them from leaving Roy, a little too stunned from the defiance that one of them exhibited right to their faces without a hint of backing down. The day quickly passes as they make their way home. The sun already beginning to set and... Did you really have to antagonize the heroes like that? Izuku asks his friend in a tired tone. Well, excuse me for speaking the truth. I'm all right with heroes, I really am. But I start to get a little annoyed with them when they treat being a hero as being nothing but a celebrity. Or they fail at their jobs and decide to yell at the people who actually did something. Jason explains in an annoyed tone. To Jason, heroes are meant to be that. Heroes who selflessly save lives and do their jobs of keeping people safe. When they almost completely forego the priority of saving lives and go for publicity and popularity, his annoyance levels rise. Still. Just give me this one man. They just stood there while we went in first and got Bakugo out despite being quirkless. I guess. Izuku relents with small shrug. I wonder how Kaken is doing. Probably getting praise still for getting his ass captured. Jakun. I stand by what I said. Jason replies without hesitation to his friend's condescending tone. Deku, mutt. Both boys turn around at the loud call out of their insulting nicknames. Running up to them happens to be just the person they had saved not too long ago. Bakugo breathes heavily as he just jogs up to them, but stops some several feet away from them. He still has an angry glare about him, but it softens for just a moment before returning to his usual anger as he clenches his fists. Listen, I would never ask either of you pathetic weaklings to help me. Don't think you can look down on me. Jason looks a little confused at what he means, but doesn't say anything, letting the guy continue his rant. Huh, got that? I was fine by myself. You're just quirkless failures who won't even cut it as rent-a-cops. You barely did anything to help me. You only got in the way of everyone else for being stupid. Don't forget it. I don't owe you anything. With that final statement, he turns right around and stalks over angrily and weirdly, leaving the quirkless duo not angry at his words, but more or less confused. He's delusional. Jason comments with a smirk. What was that about? Izuku asks in slight confusion. An emotion that Jason is equally feeling at the display Bakugo was showing to them just right now. HM. Jason questions with a thoughtful look before he gets an idea. You know, I'm not sure, but I think Bakugo was trying to thank us for saving his ass today. But he only has one emotional setting. Izuku looks at his friend but blanches as he sees the wide grin he sports. Pure unbridled anger. So his words pretty much just translated into nothing but angry words from the blonde porcupine. Izuku deadpans at his friend. Uh-huh. Oh, don't give me that. We saved him. Jason reminds his friend of that. Not matter how he spins it, no matter what delusions he can try to shove into that ego of his, we did in fact save him. He says in a low tone, a look of complete joy and satisfaction that kind of leaves Izuku a little disturbed at the mood he's practically never seen his friend in. This is something that will stay in his mind forever, no matter how much he'll try to deny it. It'll be a seed of doubt that will forever grow within the depths of his blackened little heart. Jason lets out an almost demented little laugh as he grips his hands together at the idea. After a long time of being on the end of that guy's bullying tactics, having this slight bit to lord over the guy is something that Jason seems like he's going to treasure for a long time. You scare me sometimes. Then why am I your friend? Jason straightens up and asks evenly, completely foregoing the demented persona he slowly slipped in. Because we both know I'm the only way that can keep you in check, Izuku tells him in a playful tone. They both laugh at that before chuckling good-heartedly. Yeah, that's true. Jason smiles and pats his friend's shoulder. Truly, Jason would have gone a bit overboard at times with his fights, not just the ones with Bakugo, if it wasn't for Izuku calming his fellow quirkless down. Come on, let's get back home. I'm sure our families are worried sick about us. Do you think they'll see us on the news? Maybe, but I can't say for sure. Besides, I'm sure All Might's probably keeping the interviewers and reporters busy. That I did. Ah. Dua. Izuku screams at the sudden appearance of All Might, while Jason lets out a loud yelp and immediately adopts a fighting stance, but relaxes at seeing it's the hero that saved them. All Might, where'd you come from? Izuku asks once he stops screaming, while Jason tries to get his back to normal. How'd you get rid of all those reporters? Ha 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 ha. I stand for justice. Not sound bites. Because I am all bloog. And just like that, when All Might tries to flex, a small puff of steamy smoke appears, revealing All Might in his weakened form as a gout of blood sprays from his mouth. Ah. Dude, what the hell? Izuku screams loudly, while Jason just yells and stares in surprise and worry at the sudden change, along with the sudden volume of blood. For a second, they all stop. Izuku stops screaming, with All Might only delving into a small coughing fit, muttering a little about hoping he had just a little more time. Hey. All Might looks up a little and is pleasantly surprised to see the concerned face of Jason close to him, patting his back to help, if only a little. You all right? Do you need to go to the hospital? All Might smiles at the concern he shows, but waves him off. No, don't worry. That's a little normal for me, he tells him as he straightens up. Jason looks at him oddly. I think we have different definitions of normal, especially. He waves a hand up and down the skeletal form of All Might. This. Jakun. Izuku steps forward and pulls his friend back a step or two. Don't be rude. Jason looks at his friend as he gets a thoughtful look on his face. You know, I find it odd how you're not freaking out even more when you've just seen your idol turn into a shell of himself right in front of you. Jason's theory for his friend starts to become even more reinforced when he sees the worried and almost sweating state his friend quickly turns into. And now that I remember, you were at building that I found Izuku on. All Might flinches a little at the memory. I had a feeling I met you before when we passed each other. Just wasn't expecting this of the legendary All Might. Jason comments in disdain, making no effort to hide his annoyance. Why you see JK? Save it, Izu. Jason interrupts his stammering friend as he holds high hand up. I really don't care right now. You can tell me later. What I want to know, Jason crosses his arms as he glares at the hero, is why you're here. What? Come to crush my friend's dreams some more? He steps closer, making no effort this time to hide his anger as he remembers what the hero told his friend earlier in the day. Step on them. Grind your shoe into them until they're nothing but dust. Jakun, stop. Izuku comes right up to his friend, placing him between his friend and the hero and pushing him back, although with great strain compared to his much more developed friend. It's not as bad as you. No, young man, it's okay. All Might speaks up in a tired tone, getting their attention as he sighs. In truth, I kind of deserve that after what I said. He looks up and stares at Jason. I was hoping I had a little bit more time so I could talk with your friend there, but I couldn't really hold my form for too long, since you've seen me. I promise I'll explain to you why I'm like this. But first I came to thank you, young man. He directs the last part to Izuku. making the boys looks confused but overall calm down now as the hero speaks. I also want to discuss your question from earlier. Huh? Izuku perks up in confusion. If you hadn't told me about your life, if you hadn't run into that fight, I would have been a worthless bystander watching from the crowd. So thanks. Oh no. Izuku immediately begins to dissuade the hero of his thanks. It was my fault, he was there to begin with. No way, Izu. Jason interrupts him. I was the one that shook the bottle that held the villain. I was so pissed off at him for trying to kill you that seeing him so vulnerable, I just wanted to give a little payback. He clenches his fists tightly in anger and frustration. I probably loosened the cap, thereby letting him escape so soon. But I was the one that grabbed onto All Might. Izuku round on Jason. It's because of me he wasted his energy and his time. I wasn't done. All Might interrupts before Jason can rebuttal. You told me you didn't have any powers. At the same time, you, Jacob was it? Take to Jason, but essentially. Jason shrugs and lets him continue. Your friend Izuku there, when we were talking on top of the building, he mentioned how the two of you are quirkless, correct? Jason narrows his eyes but nods. This makes All Might grin slightly wider. Young man, in all my time as a hero, never have I seen a quirkless person move like you did, fight like you did, move to protect another like you did. While Jason may have just a bit of reservation for the hero in front of him, that fact he is saying so is starting to spark something in him as his eyes widen. It's because of this, when I saw this timid, quirkless boy and his also quirkless best friend try to save a life, it inspired me to act, too. Izuku lets out a small gasp and stares in awe at his favorite hero's words. There are stories about every hero, how they became great. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think, almost on their own. Jason looks at his friend, seeing the stunned face he's making. It's then he realizes the exact reason why his best friend ran in without a care. He notices a slight glinting in his friend's eyes, right before he begins to weakly sob. He stares at his friend as Izuku clutches his chest, eyes brimming with tears, teeth gritting as the realization begins to take hold in him. As Izuku lands on his knees, Jason kneels next to him and places his hands on his friend's shoulders as comfort. And today, that's what happened today. All Might continue, not put off by the scene in front of him. Izuku continues to cry harder, his hero's words only spurring him on and providing much-needed relief that he wanted for so long. Jason wears a fake smile to cover his guilt. Being Izuku's friend, and not wanting to lose his one and only friend, he always kept supporting him in his dream to become a hero, wanting to be the person right next to him to offer his support and help when he can. But the act of actually becoming a hero was something that Jason himself never had a dream for, only Izuku did. He never had much of a plan when it came to helping his friend become a hero, only just going with him, and that's it. When they were younger, despite not having a quirk, Izuku still insisted on protecting a boy from Bakugo and his friends. The difference in strength was easily seeable with the difference of their quirks and not. Jason, not wanting to see him hurt, joined Izuku to help fight. They both lost, but it's what drove Jason to train, to work to be a better fighter to help his friend. He was always training, always preparing, always wanting to be ready to help his friend. He wore a fake smile and offered fake words to comfort his friend. Seeing his friend so emotional right now, crying in what must be happiness for him, Jason's own eyes are starting to prick with barely contained tears of his own. Seeing the both of you move to save that boy, I was completely wrong about not being able to be a hero. All Might stares at them with a level determined stare, conviction flowing through his voice as he utters the next words. The both of you, you too, can become heroes. Jason smiles at his friend, a real smile this time. This is how Izuku Midoriya became the world's greatest hero, and how Jason Takeda became the world's first quirkless hero. To say the mood for the two boys has changed dramatically after hearing what All Might said to them, even hitting Izuku the most. For the longest time, besides his friend, people have always told Izuku that he wasn't going to be able to be a hero no matter what. While his friend Jason supported him and also agreed to be a hero next to him, he too was quirkless, so his chances of being a hero were also on the same level as him, despite his training. Hearing the number one hero, his idol, finally tell him that he can become a hero, it's almost too much for the green curly-haired boy to bear. For Jason, he's just happy to see his friend get the recognition he deserves and sought for so long. I deem you worthy of my power. My quirk is yours to inherit. Both boys stare at the man, incredibly confused, with Izuku uttering a small mumble to go along with it. I'm sorry. Jason begins to mumble, placing his hand to the side of his head as he helps Izuku up to his feet. You're going to have to clarify, please. Inherit what? Gahahahaha. You should see your faces right now. All Might laughs loudly. Can you get to the point? Jason bitterly demands. Don't worry. It's nothing bad. It's not like I'm gonna force this thing on you. He steps a little closer before stopping. Listen well, young Midoriya, he loudly proclaims as he points his finger towards the sky. This is your choice. Do you want to accept my awesome power or not? Kra. His statement ends as he points his finger back down at Izuku, right before blood spills from his mouth again. Izuku simply stares confused still, while Jason flinches at seeing the continued blood spill. What is he talking about? Izuku thinks before voicing his thoughts. What is this? Jason cocks his head in agreement with his friend, as he remembers All Might saying something about inheriting his quirk. The man himself straightens up as he gives them a level stare and an explanation. There are a couple things you should know about my abilities. Izuku perks up at this, while at the same time Jason widens his eyes in curiosity. While he may have gotten annoyed at times at his friend's constant mumbling rants about All Might, he distinctly remembers the mystery that always surrounded the hero and exactly what his quirk is all about. Now they both are about to get some information about the subject. Journalists always guess my quirk is super strength or some kind of invulnerability. When people ask in interviews, I always make a joke and dodge the question. That's because the world needs to believe that their symbol of peace is just a natural-born hero, like any of them. But I'm not. He adds a little sadly. There's nothing natural about my ability. Artificial. That's the question that immediately goes to Jason's from what he's implying. He remains quiet as the man continues as he waves his hands above his head before spreading them outwards. I wasn't born with this power. It's a sacred torch that was passed on to me from someone else. Passed on? Jason's repeats confused. Someone gave you this quirk? No way. Izuku mutters in disbelief. Yes way. And you're next. I can give you my abilities. All Might proclaims, a small breeze of wind lifting his shirt enough for Jason to see, making him recoil just a little at the scar. Wait. Hold on. This is a lot to process. Yes, so is this some sort of transformative quirk? Is this your real self? Jason asks as he waves his hand up and down All Might's form. This lanky, on death's door, half dead, scarred to oblivion. Okay, I get it, geez. All Might stops him from continuing his description of the decrepit man's looks. Now this isn't what I originally looked like. All Might then gives Jason a quick rundown of what happened. A much shorter version than what he told Izuku about how he went from the buff hero to the skinny person he is now. Jason nods along at the information, still has questions. Okay, but still, what about your quirk exactly? Yeah, that's right, Izuku pipes up. It's true that there's a lot of debate as to what your quirk actually is. Nobody's ever figured it out. It's one of the world's greatest mysteries. People are constantly talking about it online. But will thadioff pasinganak were koran hariding it just docent mechanis and sedum. Jason lets out a sigh as he realizes his friend just got into one of his moods again. All Might looks a little confused at the scene happening before him, and how the kid he wants to pass his quirk on to is not even stopping to take a breath from his ramblings. Ooh, does he do this often? He asks. More often than I'd like. His heart and mind is in the right place, but he just gets Wasane too into it. Jason replies in a tired voice, but still has a smile at his friend's antics. Oh, okay. How do we? All Might trails off. Don't worry, I got it. Jason steps next to Izuku as he continues to ramble on still without stopping at all. Jason raises his hands outstretched to the sides. Asterisk clap asterisk. Ah, Izuku jerks violently. The loud clapping sounds so close to him, breaking him from his mumblings. He stares at Jason's clapped hands together, just inches from his face. He pushes his hands down and looks miffed at his friend for a second before realization dawns on his face and looks down. I was doing it again, wasn't I? Mcham. Jason nods. Well, don't worry about it, young man. I like the enthusiasm, but let me continue. All Might gets the conversation back on track. While yes, this seems weird for quirks, you're just going to have to accept this new truth since it's right in front of you. I can transfer my quirk to someone else, and that's just one facet of my secret abilities. One? Jason questions. He shuts up though when a glowing light appears from the man's hand in front of them, radiating power from it. The true name of my power is One for All. All Might reveals. Wow. Jason mutters in awe. That's a pretty cool name. One for All. Izuku is equally as awed by this info. Yes, one person improves the power, then hands it off to another person. It continues to grow as it's passed along. It is this cultivated power that allows me to save those who are in need of a hero. The truth behind my strength. All Might finishes explaining, leaving his small audience just a little in awe at this revelation. So it stockpiles power from each user. Interesting. Jason mumbles to himself. But why would you choose to give me a gift like that? What if I can't live up to it? Izuku asks in utter disbelief, not really believing that a quirkless person like him would be suitable for a power such as this. I think you already showed him just what it means to be Hero Izu. Jason speaks up, gaining his friend's attention as he smiles at him. You may not have the means, but you have the drive, and he can give you the means. He thumbs the hero in question, who nods in agreement. He's right. For a while now I've been on the hunt for a worthy successor. And then, I watched the both of you jump into action as the rest of us stood idly by. Memories flash into their minds from the villain attack earlier today, when Izuku went running in first, followed by Jason soon after. You both may be quirkless, but you went headlong in to save that kid, and even succeeded. You both acted like heroes. Jason smirks as he looks away while Izuku has tears briming in his eyes again as he collapses to his knees again. While yes, they did pull Bakugo from the villain, Jason doesn't see it as much a success when he himself got replaced instead. Still, considering they replaced his explosive-wielding quirk with a quirkless one, that no doubt helped a lot. Seriously, you gotta stop crying so much if you want my quirk. Come on, kid. All Might says good-heartedly. Izuku's fingers clench. He said so much to encourage us, even going as far as telling us the secret behind his powers. Is this what I've been waiting for all these years? How can I turn him down? He looks up too and opens his mouth, but he freezes for a second as his eyes slowly glide over to his friend. His friend who has stuck by him all these years. Whenever Izuku was getting bullied or picked on, he was there and ready to help protect and defend him without hesitation. His friend, who has been training a lot longer than he has, who has a much more broader grasp of fighting and combat than he ever will, who also tried to get him to join the dojo he went to, even exercise so he can be more in shape, but always brushed him off, saying he was to be the brains and tactician of their duo, while he was the fighter. With those thoughts, He cranes his head down before staring back up at All Might. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. But they look at Izuku curiously as he adds at the end. I don't know how to fight. I don't know if I can properly be able to use your quirk. Izuku begins to say with a small increasing crescendo in his voice, much to their surprise. I've never trained before in my whole life, and you just might waste it on me. If there's anyone you should give your quirk to who I know can be a good hero and the best fighter ever, then you should give it to Jakun. Their eyes widen as he says this, much to their stunned surprise. Izuku, Jason says in disbelief. You're always the one that's been training. Izuku stands up, facing his friend. You have the skills, the training. With his quirk, you can be a super amazing hero. Izu, you're always the one who protected me. He voice lessens a little as his head dips down. You're always the one who kept supporting me to be hero, even going as far as wanting to join me at UA. Izuku, please. That's why I know you can do so much more with one for all than I ever. I didn't want to save him. Both Izuku and All Might stare in surprise at the loud outburst Jason exhibited. Izuku especially surprised by his friend yelling at him, or the angry look on his face. Jason breathes heavily at his outburst, but takes a deep breath as he pinches the bridge of his nose before grabbing Izuku's arm. Excuse us for a second. He drags his friend effortlessly away until they are a fair distance away from All Might, out of hearing distance. All Might stares at the two of them in curiosity, wondering what they're talking about. Although from the way he sees it, it's Jason that's doing most of the talking with Izuku just standing there. His quirk may have incredible power, but it's not exactly one for super hearing, at least not now in his diminished form. Soon, though, he sees a nod from Izuku, and they both make their way back to him with a more determined step in their moves. Well, he asks once they make it to him as he presses his hand to his face. Okay, I'll do it. Yes. With renewed determination, he stands firm as he agrees to take the quirk. Jason smiles and sighs in relief at his friend as he gives a nod. Well then, that's good. I was worried for a second there, but I'm glad you agreed. The pro-hero grins before letting his hand fall from his face. We got a lot of work to do if we're going to get you both in shape for UA. Meet me in 2 days at Takoba Municipal Beach Park bright and early, and I'll help get you both set up. They both nod in determination. It's been 2 days since they met All Might. 2 days since the man revealed to the two of them the origin of his quirk. 2 days since he offered to share his quirk with Midoriya Izuku, and he agreed. Now the two of them are at the beach that All Might told them to go to, which the place looks like an old refused dump site from an old Fallout game than an actual beach. The sun is just barely cresting over the waters, so most people are already still asleep, so the probability of anyone seeing them is slim to none. With the beach being how it is, most people give it a wide berth, giving the trio the perfect opportunity to meet, and for All Might to explain just a little bit more about his quirk and why they are there. Your quirk can do what to him? Seriously? As it stands, Jason screams out as he grabs his head, in utter disbelief and major fear of the possibility of his friend getting killed almost instantly once he inherits the hero's quirk. Izuku also yells in horror before shaking his head as he rubs his arm. He is kneeling in the sand after failing to pull a refrigerator with a 600 lb man on top, while Jason stands nearby. 560 my ass, Jason commented ruefully at the time. Okay, so this whole trash thing is really some kind of hardcore gym workout. And you're my trainer. Izuku surmises as he stares up at the smiling man. You got it. He gives him a thumbs up. That's pretty good. Jason comments as he glances around at the mountains of trash. You kill 2 birds with 1 stone this way. You get the workout you need to bring your fitness levels up, and you do a good community service along the way by cleaning up this forsaken place. He flinches as he almost puts his hand on a rusty metal pipe, preferring not to get a tetanus shot just when they are going to start their training. Got it in one, young Taekta. He gives a second thumbs up to Jason. He turns around to the refrigerator. I did a little online research yesterday. Turns out this part of the beach used to be beautiful, but it's been a total mess for the last few years. *CRNCH*. Jason blanches at the sheer ease. All Might just created a divot in the old appliance by just knocking on it once. That's right. Because of the ocean currents, anything that's dropped in the water ends up here. Izuku begins to explain the backstory of the beach and how it became what it is now. People take advantage of that when they're illegally dumping their trash. You know, I like to question the people that decided to dump freaking whole vehicles. Jason comments annoyed as he kicks the bumper of a nearby buried truck, having a hard time figuring out if it washed up on the beach or someone just left it there on the beach itself. Still, now all the locals avoid this place. Izuku finishes explaining. Heroes these days are all about showing off and capturing flash villains. All Might comments as he places his hand on top of the fridge. Things were different before quirks. Service was what mattered. Right before their eyes, they watch as the man effortlessly crushes the fridge like he's crushing a tin can as he continues to explain. Back then, heroes were those who helped the community, even if it was kinda boring. With one last push, massive gust of wind flares all around them, blowing Izuku and Jason's hair back a little as they are suddenly assaulted by the bright light of the sun. All Might just finished crushing the fridge like it was nothing. You will restore the coastline for this entire section of the beach. That is the first step on your path, young Midoriya, towards being a hero. As they realize his words, they gasp and look around. All this? Izuku asks in disbelief. That's a lot. But there's so much. That's impossible, even with the two of us working together. Oh no, young man. This task is all for you. They both stare back at the man. Young Taekta here will have a different training regime than you. So, you're going to be the one to clean this place up without his or my help. Izuku still looks unsure about it while Jason just grimaces. Young Midoriya, you want to go to UA, right? Well, yeah, of course, Izuku says like it's the most obvious answer. You went there, so it must be the best school around, right? It's a long shot. But still, I'm gonna shoot for the moon. UA we both are. He adds the last part as he looks to his friend. Jason smiles at that and gives a nod in agreement. You've got a lot of spirit, fanboy. All Might's boisterous tone and sentence causes Izuku to blush a little, with Jason giving him a playful punch in the arm. But his turns around to stare at the sea as his tone turns serious. But, as I've mentioned before, heroing isn't easy to do without a quirk. It's not fair, but that's the reality. Jason grimaces at that as he opens and closes his fingers repeatedly. And UA is the hardest hero course to get into. He turns around and looks at the two of them, more specifically at Jason. We've already got the plan set up for young Midoriya to inherit my quirk. But you young Taekta, he perks up as the man points at him, are going to go at it completely without a quirk the whole time you are there. Think you can go at it still? Knowing you're going to be the black sheep, the odd one out at the most prestigious hero school in the entire world, famed for nurturing and creating some of the brightest and best heroes our society has ever seen. Jason stares at the man with a level expression on his face. Izuku stares at his friend, curiosity brimming with him at the small speech his idol just gave. While Izuku knows he's going to work to get the right inherit All Might's quirk, that means he can be on the same level as other quirk users in UA. Jason, though, will be without a quirk from the beginning to the end, giving him a natural disadvantage as soon as he enters. Yet all the time that Jason has stuck by and protected Izuku, he's held his own against other quirk users, if only barely. As the school's motto goes, Jason smirks as he punches his right fist into the palm of his left hand, resulting in a loud crack that startles his green-haired friend, but makes the pro hero's ever-present smile widen even more. Go beyond, plus ultra. Izuku smiles with admiration at his friend's words as Jason relaxes while he keeps the smirk. That's their motto, right? I promised my friend here I'd help him become the greatest hero ever. Joining him at UA will only help further that goal of helping him. Whatever challenges I face at the school, or to get inside period, I'm ready to face them head on. He throws a fist forward. Whatever we have to do to get in, we'll do it. Izuku joins in with a proud smile of his own. He throws his own fist forward alongside his friend. Together, they both yell at the same time with clear, unwavering determination, lacing their voices and words. Ha 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 ha. Yes. That is exactly what I want to hear. All Might's voice booms with a tinge of proudness seeping in at the boy's declaration. Quirkless or not, you both are just brimming with spirit. I love it. I can see the both of you going far in UA. They both smile at that as they lower their arms. All Might calms down a little. But before you can get in, young Midoriya, we have to get you ready, which means he trails off, which allows Izuku to catch on to what he's saying. That I have to prepare my body for your quirk really fast. UA's exam is in 10 months. Izuku finishes explaining. That doesn't give us a lot of time to prepare. Jason adds, already his mind is trying to come up with regiments and exercise time frames to work with barely a year's worth of preparation. Not to worry, kid. I've got you covered. All Might pulls out a set of papers and taps them, getting their attention. With the help of my handy aim to pass, American Dream Plan. Both boys take the papers and look at them, reading through the intense exercise regime that All Might cooked up, much to their surprise. Follow this to the letter, young Midoriya, and the beach will be cleaned up just in time. I also detailed every other aspect of your life while I was at it. So detailed, not surprising. Izuku murmurs as he looks through the papers. Holy crap. He's even got your sleep scheduled. Jason comments as he shows Izuku the page detailing so. Okay, now I'm a little surprised. If I'm being honest, this is going to be super hard. Think you're up to it? All Might whispers to Izuku, even though Jason can hear too. Izuku smiles, just a little bit wavered, but he's still a little jarred. Yeah, sure I am. I doubt our minds changed in the last minute or so. We're going to have to work way harder than anyone else to get in. But what choice do we have, right? Izuku finishes for his friend. Jason takes note of his friend's lightly worried expression and can't help but add a little more fuel to the fire. Starting to regret never taking me up on my training offers, he leans in close to his friend. Izuku stares down dejectedly. Maybe a little. Both Jason and All Might share a brief chuckle at the green-haired boy's expense before All Might turns to Jason. You know, in truth, I was planning to give you a similar plan like Midoriya here. But something tells me brawn isn't something that suits you. That's actually true, sir. Jason begins to explain. I can't rely on brute strength and brawn to take down my opponents, because there's always a chance I might face someone with a quirk that might render all that strength I have null, or who just might have a quirk that'll make them insanely strong to begin with. He looks down at his hands, flexing his fingers as he clenches and unclenches his fists. That's why he clenches his fists tightly before staring up at All Might. I need to focus on techniques in order to beat my opponents. Render all that strength they have nothing if I can get them in a compromising position. That's why, while I've been thinking these last couple days, I'm actually going to ask my father to train me and supervise me, along with getting more advanced lessons for martial arts from the dojo I go to. He stands firm as he adopts a stance for himself. I plan to use a training regimen focused on cardio, flexibility, reflexes, and stamina training, so I can last longer in fights and outpace my opponents if the fight draws out. As well as having the movement and reaction time, I need to take down a variety of opponents. He lays it all out. When enemies rely on brute strength to fight, to be bigger, tougher, and stronger than their opponents, it's a reliable method to fall back on techniques and the proper combat styles to defeat the right opponent. Haha. That's good to know, kid, because to be honest, I didn't have a plan for you yet. Izuku and Jason deadpan at the man as they slouch at his tone. I think that's an excellent plan. To be honest, because of my strength, it's easy for me to just simply brute strength most of my opponents. I don't have much knowledge when it comes to martial arts, as say a master who spent years honing their skills. So if your father and your sensei at the dojo can help you refine your ways in fighting, then that's even better. All Might takes on a slightly more serious tone. Just remember, you two, with the way your training's going to be, it's unlikely it'll be weeks, maybe even months before you two can hang out again. Maybe a joint train together here and there. These 10 months are going to need to be devoted to both of your trainings without distraction. Better say your proper goodbyes for now, because when we're done, you both are going to be walking up to the gate of UA together. Two completely changed people. All Might informs them. They both look a little sad at that news, but it's not really surprising. No time to hang around and just chill when they'll need to devote nearly every second from now till February in order to bring their bodies up to physical standing for the grueling entrance exam, and subsequently the rest of their time at school. Jason may have been doing some training till now, but he's going to have to really push it in order to keep up with the other students who got it. They both turn to look at each other. They have a slightly sad look, but it soon turns to determination. There were some jogging runs I'm going to have to do at some points in my training. Izuku says, I'm going to be doing a lot of runs. We'll run together for a few here and there. I'll find days to work with. They both share a small laugh at that before calming down at smiling at one another. I'm going to go ahead and head back home. Gonna go and get my dad to start setting up my training plan. Tomorrow I'll probably talk to my sensei too for more lessons. See if they can come up with plans to work things together from what I'm thinking. He gives a firm nod to his friend and stares at him intensely. Izu, I better see you at UA with a new quirk and your limbs attached. Izuku smiles at his friend and nods. Jakun, I know I'll see you there. He extends his hand out to a firm handshake. Promise. Without hesitation, Jason clasps it and smirks. Promise. After the two friends promised one another, that's when they both split up to begin the journey to their respective training experiences. Izuku stayed back at the beach to get ready for his workout with All Might, and Jason went home to get his setup too. He walks down the sidewalk that houses his street, which is also about a 10-minute run from the Midoriya's apartment. He takes a look and stares at his home. It's a quad house, not too big, but definitely not small either, with enough rooms to house his parents than himself, as well as basically an empty his mother converted for her office space, and another for his dad he set up with exercise equipment. It's a light blue painted house with light gray shingles covering the roof. A large stone and metal bar hedge wall surrounds the property with cameras at different points on the corners of the house. He smiles at being home and opens the gate to his home before stepping up to the door. Just before he steps through, though, he takes a second to breathe as gets ready to ask his father. He walks in through the door. I'm home. Hey, sweetie, his mother calls out. Hey, son. He hears his father call out. He takes off his shoes and walks through the small hallway before entering into an intersection to the living room and the kitchen. While his family spent a fair amount of time in the States, they've done what they can to accommodate the customs in Japan, such as taking your shoes off at the door. He steps forward and glances to the side. On his left, he sees the living room area of the house where his father currently resides, laying back in a reclining chair and watching TV. His father is a large, gruff man, reaching just 6 feet tall, and is of white Caucasian descent, muscles adorning his body, keeping in fit shape despite being in civilian life. His hair is black, from the thick head of hair on his head to the large goatee bear mustache combo on his face. His eyes are brown, and he's wearing a simple dark gray t-shirt with black jeans. Some dog tags can be seen hanging around his neck. Amidst his face can be seen a few scars, from a small line on his brow barely cutting into his right eyebrow and a jagged line from his bottom lip to his chin. To his right, he spots his mother in the kitchen cooking some food for the family. She's of Japanese descent with long, flowing brown hair reaching her lower back. She reaches a height of around 5 foot 5 inches, has blue eyes, and is wearing a yellow sundress with a polka-dotted apron over it. Jason smiles a little at his family. Due to his being a quirkless and all, it didn't take a genius to know that Jason's life wasn't exactly going to be a pleasant one. His father was an American in the States, formerly Army Ranger in the military before advancing in the ranks and eventually getting out of it, and his mother is Japanese. After his tour of duty was over, he tried to resume to civilian life before he eventually met his wife and the two fell in love. It wasn't long until the two married and took the mother's side as their last name, and they had a kid together, that kid being Jason. Trying to make out a life in the States was something they weren't expecting to do, but when Jason's mother, Takeda Akira, got a job offer back in Japan that they decided to move. Jason's father, Takeda Michael, welcomed the new change of location. He wasn't too confident in the idea of his boy growing up in America and felt the Japanese style of life might be better suited for his son. After moving to Musataju, Japan, Jason eventually met his two new friends at the age of 3, Midoriya Izuku and Bakugo Katsuki. For a long while the three of them were the best of friends and hung out and played together all the time, with all three families happy at their kids, forming such quick, close bonds of friendship. It wasn't until the Takeda family found out about Jason's quirkless nature that their fears became apparent. Jason's father was saddened by the news, but also relieved that things would no doubt be even worse for his son had he stayed and raised him back in the States. When it was also revealed that Izuku was also quirkless, it was a bit of a sobering thought to know that Jason wasn't alone in his plight. Jason, however, never bothered much with the idea of having a quirk or not, and only wanted to live and hang out with his friends, more specifically Izuku, who he got along with more than Bakugo. Of course, the already inflated ego of the explosion quirk user increased dramatically when he found out just how powerful and cool his quirk was. It wasn't long before he pushed away his two friends and went from friend to bully almost overnight. Jason wanted to do something, but Izuku always told him to please not, somehow holding on to the ideal that they were still friends with Bakugo. Not wanting to argue with his only friend, he let things play out as they did. But that doesn't mean he was just going to stand by. That's where his training came in. Wanting to become a better fighter, he asked his parents to allow him the opportunity to train in a dojo to better learn to fight. They saw the bruises, but they knew he didn't want to mention anything. His mother was worried, but his father simply nodded at the request, knowing that learning to fight would be a big help for him in the future regardless. While it was hard, Jason never regretted learning at a dojo, no matter how hard things got or how much it hurt. He even made a friend in the dojo for years, until she eventually moved away that they couldn't hang out or go to the same dojo anymore. Now, Jason looks around as the memories flood back. Food's almost ready. I'll call you when it's done. His mother tells him. Glancing up from the food, she's cooking for a second to see her son before looking back down. Yeah, Jason trails off as he stares at the chair his father is sitting in. Hey, Dad, he says as he walks up into the living room, stepping up to the side of the chair. Hey, kiddo, his father answers, not looking up as he watches a football game. How was it hanging out with Izuku? You didn't stay with him long. Jason and his father having originally learned more American customs. At the start for Jason for his brief time in America, and living with a full-blooded American as a father, aren't majorly privy to the whole last name basis in Japan customs. At least for Jason, he rather follows that when meeting new people, resorts to their first names when they become friends of his, or giving them nicknames when becoming best friends. Yeah, we just went to meet up with his trainer. He's finally going to get ready for Yua. That's good. That scrawny boy needs it. His father laughs good-heartedly before relaxing. I'm kidding. He's a good kid. Add being able to fight, and you got someone who can kick your ass, while making sure you're all right. What about you? Got any plans for the same thing? Still going to UA? That's actually why I want to talk to you. Jason sits down on the couch nearby and stares at his father. I want you to train me. Jason's mom looks up from her cooking, eyes a little wide. His dad mutes the TV and turns to his son fully. Jason. Dad, I cannot hold anything back when it comes to me getting into UA. Izuku is going to give it his all, and more, in order to achieve his dream of being a hero. And I want to be right there beside him when he attains that dream. That's why I need more training in order to better prepare myself. That's why I want your help. He now has his father's full attention as the man leans forward in the chair, staring intently at his son. I plan to talk to my sensei at the dojo for taking more advanced lessons, learning new combat styles and such. But I also want your help to be better. To learn some new moves you learned in the military, as well as training to be faster. I can move better, I can last longer. Reflexes, stamina, cardio, flexibility. I want you to put me through the ringer, so I can be better than anyone else I fight. All Might is going to hold nothing back when he's training Izuku, so I need to have nothing held back on me to keep up with him at UA. Jason stands up and stands in a firm, ready position in front of his dad with determined look. Can you train me? His father doesn't say anything. He stares at his son before sitting up and standing, stepping right in front of his son, showcasing just the height he has over his son, and how much bigger of a man the father is over the son. You're going to bleed. He doesn't sugarcoat it. You're going to be bruised. You're going to feel pain you've never felt before. He crosses his arms and gives his son a hard stare. If you do this, I'm going to make you feel like you're walking through hell. Even more so since you only have 10 months. Jason, are you sure? His mother steps forward, looking a little worried at what she's hearing, and wants to make sure her son knows exactly what he's doing. You don't have to go to UA. There are other schools and other professions you can go into than just being a hero. She never herself wanted to become a hero, but always saw the admiration people put into heroes, but also knew the danger they went into almost on a daily basis, having to fight and go against the worst the world has to offer. Jason lets out a sigh and dips his head down before giving a firm nod to his mother. I do, Mom. I have to be there for Izuku, to be there for my friend, who's always stuck by me no matter what. And also, Jason gets a small smile as the idea forms in his mind. I want to show the world what a quirkless can do. That a quirkless doesn't mean useless. Akira has to do what she can to keep tears from falling from her eyes. She takes a deep breath and gives him a nod. Jason smiles and nods back before staring at his dad. Neither of them know what it's like to be quirkless, so they can't say anything different. But they still worry. The man smiles as he gives him a nod. I'm going to break you. He loves his son with all his heart, and by the end of their training, Jason's going to hate his father. Jason gives his dad a cocky smile in return. You'll crack me, but you won't break me. Please don't kill each other. His mom lets out a tired smile before returning to the food. This is the start of Jason and Izuku's training. The absolute grueling work they both will have to go through in order to prove to themselves and get ready to enter into one of the toughest and most prestigious hero schools in the world, UA Academy. To say the time between when they started training to the day of the entrance exam being a relaxing time would be a severely gross understatement. For 10 months, the two quirkless boys, Midoriya Izuku and Takeda Jason, spent a lot of time. Days on end did they devote themselves to sticking to their rigorous training schedules. From the piles upon piles of trash that Izuku had to move, push, pull in order to keep it from littering the beach, to Jason's constant beatdowns at the hands of his father. 2 months into training, June. Smack asterisk. Grah, Jason shouts as he's tossed to the ground. Get up. Jason lets out a cough as he rolls over, barely pushing himself onto his hands and knees. He's barely able to bring his arm up to defend before a kick lands right into his forearm, making him grunt in pain as he rolls away a few times before stopping on his back, his chest rising and falling in shallow pained breaths. You were slow. You didn't bring up your defense in time, and now you're on the ground. Jason can barely make out his father's words through the pain. His workout clothes, from his t-shirt to the shorts he's wearing, are covered and almost drenched in his sweat, with a few stains of blood on the front of his shirt. Under his clothes and a couple parts on his face, one would see the myriad of bruises forming on his beaten body. Come on, get up. You said you wanted me to train you, so get up. His father almost growls out. Jason weakly rolls onto his side, but is having trouble putting pressure on his sore, bruised arms. Is that it? Is that all you're capable of? Are just going to give up now? His father screams. Jason grits his teeth as his fingers clench, raking his fingers along the stone floor of their garage. His breathing becomes shaky, but he pushes through it, placing pressure on his arms as they shakingly hold him up. He pushes to his hands and knees before slowly, but steadily standing back to his full height. Bruises adorn his face, with his bottom lip being split and small trail of blood going down the left corner of his mouth. He spits it out, a small glob of blood, before moving into a boxer stance. His dad nods before getting into a similar stance of his own. They charge. It was agony for Jason, as he was overworked constantly to the point of near passing out. His father never let up in making his son feel pain now, so he could take it even more as he attended UF from the combat training his father put him through. His sensei wasn't allowing him to slack off either, putting Jason through more advanced martial arts training, as well as different forms of stretching and yoga to limber his body up, allowing for more fluid movements and transitions into his fighting moves. Jason's mother always gave him worried looks as the training continued for him, making it hard for her to see her son constantly get hurt in an effort to streamline his fitness efforts. Izuku was only slightly better off than Jason, having a teacher who didn't run him ragged with constant forms of combat training sessions, but instead made him haul large amounts of heavy scrap metal and junk, making him use various muscle groups as he hauls it, not to mention the amount of exercising he needs to do, to the point his muscles are screaming at him to stop. But neither he nor his friend are stopping anytime soon. Adding into them having to keep up with their schoolwork was not helping when they were sleep-deprived and muttering most of the time without intending to. Snap. But Jason is usually there, right next to his friend, to snap him out of his muttering, to keep him from drawing attention from the rest of the class. When Jason isn't training with his teachers, he was tasked with working on his cardio and movement. That kind of transition to him meeting a unique and eccentric individual. 4 months into training, August. Jason breathes heavily in steady pants, keeping his breathing in steady volumes as he jogs down the beach. Having the resistance of the sand as he jogs up and down the sandy beach helps in boosting his running, similar to when someone wears weights when running, which Jason will transition to later on. He runs again towards the section of Takoba Beach that Izuku has been spending cleaning up. It's something that Jason will do in order to at least see his friend every now and again. The show of seeing each other working hard at their training, pushing each other to keep on going. What happened to my salvage? Jason almost trips as the loud voice he has never heard of before yells near a pile of scrap junk. Further down the way he sees All Might and Izuku training still, but haven't heard the voice. Who's taking all my salvage? He passes by another pile of junk and comes upon an odd scene. Standing there, angry, very angry, is a pink-haired girl in a gray mechanic's jumpsuit with a top and arms tied around her waist with a blank tank top adorning her top, holding a red toolbox in hand and a welder's mask in the other. You. Jason flinches as the girl whirls around and points at him. When she does, he notices her yellow eyes almost look like crosshairs. Do you know who's been stealing my valuable salvage spots? Ooh, Jason murmurs, surprised by the attention thrown on him so suddenly. These piles used to be 3 times bigger than me, filled to the brim with valuable scrap. And now look at it. Jason does that as the girl yells, making him notice that the piles are indeed getting smaller as time passes. He gives a mental smile to his friend and the noticeable work he's doing. These things are barely taller than me, so I'll ask again, who's getting rid of them? She asks, getting right up in his face and staring intently at him, even though she has to look up at him. His mouth opens and closes a few times, still caught off guard by the girl, before he accidentally glances down the beach where All Might and Izuku are training. Her head turns on a swivel, following his view trail and seeing the two as well. Is that them? Are they the ones preventing me from making new babies? Jason looks at her oddly at what she means. Ooh, I'm gonna make them regret poaching my salvage spots. Jason freezes as she begins stomping up to the others. Whoa, wait. Jason dashes forward and grabs onto the girl. Hey, what are you doing? Get off me. She shouts as she flails her arms around. It's only because of Jason's training up to this point that he isn't brained by the flailing toolbox as he pulls her behind another pile away from their view, avoiding her movement. He lets go of her and quickly looks back to the others before back at her. Listen, I'm sorry, but you can't tell them to stop cleaning up the beach. He firmly tells her. And why not? She angrily rounds back on him as she drops her stuff. He told her firmly, and she may be shorter than him, and yet he still flinches at the gaze she has on him. He looks nervously before answering. B, because we're training to get into UA's hero course, and him cleaning up the beach is his workout to get ready. He quickly tells her. Well, tough. I'm trying to get into. She freezes, which makes Jason confused as she gets a thoughtful look, her previous anger disappearing. Wait, you said we are training to get into UA. Are you going to try to get into UA? Into the hero course? Her previous anger gone, now replaced with assertive enthusiasm as she gets in really up close as she smiles, making Jason blush uncomfortably as he tries to step back, but she just steps forward. Ooh, yeah, I am. He answers hesitantly. That's perfect, she yells as she jumps up excitedly. When she goes back down, she takes one more look around the junk piles around them before getting a sly smile, and as she stares at him. All right, you don't want me interrupting your friend over there, she thumbs behind her, past the pile blocking them from Izuku and his trainer. So I'll make you a deal. Oh, I have a bad feeling about this, Jason thinks with no small amount of uncomfortableness at what she might imply. When, or if, you get into UA and become a hero, then I get to be your exclusive supplier for your hero gear, costume, support equipment, and all. She tells him with a wide smile. He looks at her completely confused at the proposition. Wait, what? But I don't? Of course you can still hire a support company to make the stuff. But all the inventions, all the ideas go through me first. Got it? She points a thumb to herself. Why? He asks, completely floored by her demand. Because when I go to UA and make lots of babies to really wow people and get noticed, I'm gonna need someone in the hero course to show to everyone what my babies can do. Babies. My inventions. What I make and create with my own 2 hands. They're my babies, and if I can have at least one person using them and telling everyone who made them, then I'll be one step closer to being noticed by the big dogs. Her jest continues to get wider and slightly scare Jason as she continues to speak, and basically blackmail Jason to keep her from interrupting Izuku's training. Tell me, what's your quirk? Oh crap, Jason tenses at her question, realizing that if she doesn't like or think he can become a hero, she'll take back her deal. I don't have a quirk. Her smile disappears, replaced with a confused frown as she tilts her head. So, you're a quirkless, trying to make it into the hero course at the best hero academy in the world. Jason lets out a sigh at her observation as he nods. She's going to take back her deal. I need to come up with another deal to keep her from. Even better. Her loud outburst breaks him from his inner thoughts, staring at her in confusion still. Wah, if you're quirkless, then that means everyone is going to be looking at you as you attend. You're the perfect spotlight to show everyone my babies, she shouts in joy, arms spread out wide with her smiles returning to her face. Her hand thrusts out towards him. Hatsume, at your service. You're going to need my babies if you're going to make it as a hero, she says with a cocky smile. Jason stares down at her outstretched hand. He lets out a sigh, hating how he's basically being blackmailed. But he relents and stands tall as he takes a deep breath. He shakes her hand with his own. Take to Jason, he smiles. Up-and-coming world's first quirkless hero. That was an odd day for him, so he now just basically gained a very eccentric inventor who's going to design most of his gear. Barely even knowing her no less. Such a mess. But if it ensures she doesn't mess with Izu's training, then so be it. He's mostly going to Yua anyway to support Izuku, so if he fails, then that's something he doesn't have to worry about. Nonetheless, besides that hiccup, his training has been going smoothly. Rough but smoothly as far as progress goes. It's a painful process for the two boys, but the progress made is making leaps and bounds for the two of them. Izuku is slowly starting to gain more and more muscle mass as he cleans up the beach, being able to lift heavier and heavier pieces of junk as he continues. For Jason, his combat and martial arts training has been showing fruitful rewards for himself as well. His combat prowess is a far cry from the simple moves he originally learned when he was just starting out. To speed ahead his cardio and stamina training, he went from running on the beach to a much higher elevation. The mountain. There's a nearby mountain on the edge of the city, roughly an hour's jog from his home to the mountain. By running and working out at higher elevations, Jason hopes to elevate his cardiovascular levels and hemoconcentration to allow him to move better without succumbing to fatigue quicker, forcing his body to adapt to the lower oxygen levels at a slightly higher altitude than within the city limits. The mountain isn't really something remarkable or as high as other landmarks around the world, but even something will hopefully give Jason the push he needs. Add into the fact of the colder months moving in towards the end of the year. He's really giving his efforts at running a large boost. One final addition to his training he added was to take up Parkour. Being able to move with enough grace to scale over nearly any obstacle, and even climbing up the sides of buildings from ledges and drain pipes, as well as leaping from building to building, helps to improve his coordination and balance as he moves in a fight. There's also the fact that if he becomes a hero, the ease of movement will help him in being able to make shortcuts to his destination and where he is needed. It is a grueling time for both quirkless boys, pushing their bodies to their absolute limits and past, having to exercise muscles group they almost never used before, keeping up with their schoolwork and the grades needed for them to keep their application to UA solid, eating radically different diets than their normal foods to help keep their figures in physical shape. It was a trial and a half for them, but it all comes down to the moment of truth. The UA entrance exam. 10 months into training, February 26th. All Might, also known as Toshinori Yagi, closes the door to his truck, garbed in a large dark blue coat and scarf, while wearing green baggy pants and black shoes. It's early in the morning, so early that the sun has only just barely started cresting over the water. He begins walking towards the section of the beach he had assigned Izuku to clean up as the last leg of his training. Today's the day. The entrance exam. I've done what I can to mold that boy's body into a vessel worthy of one for all. But is it enough for this quirk and the exam? He grimly thinks. Toshinori's eyes widen at the loud distant screaming he begins to hear. His legs push him just a little more as he heads to the source of the yelling, mentally preparing himself to buff up just in case. When he gets to the source, though, all he can do is stare in wide-eyed awe and surprise at the scene before him. Standing atop the last pile of garbage he was hauling, even bigger than Toshinori had originally thought was going to be, is Midoriya Izuku. wearing light blue pants with a white stripe on the outside of them, shoeless and shirtless with sweat covering his now muzzly defined body as he continues to scream in victory. Hey, holy crap, kid. Toshinori mutters in awe as he stares wide-eyed at the now clean, pristine beach. You even cleaned up outside the area I told you to. Seriously. He is completely taken back by the effort that Izuku put into the whole thing. There's not one speck of trash left on this beach. Only a few minutes to spare. But you exceeded my expectations. Holy, stinkin', super crap. Toshinori buffs up at the last word. The work that Izuku did impressing him enough to transform. Izuku has finally stopped screaming, his body fatigued and tired from having pushed himself to clean up the last of the beach in time, and his cry of victory. Already his body begins to wobble atop the large pile, no longer able to keep his body standing atop of the pile. Toshinori gets ready to bolt forward, intent to catch the young man before he hits the ground. He hesitates as he hears someone running up behind him. He only has a chance to see out of his peripheral vision before someone bolts forward past him in a full-on sprint. He runs up atop a parked car, steps once on the railing and runs on the side of small footholds on the trash pile without so much as a misstep or falter as Izuku falls off the top. He grabs the falling Izuku out of the air, holding him in his arms as he goes airborne for a second. His feet land and slide along the sea wall before kicking off once more. With a loud grunt, his feet slam into the sand, his knees bent to prevent damage to his legs as he slides along the sand a few feet. When he finally stops, Jason stands there, breathing heavily, shaking as he holds his friend's body in his arms. "Jakun," Izuku weakly says, barely opening his eyes to see his friend staring at him. "I got you, Izu." Jason breathes out, finding himself just a little surprised at how heavy his formerly light friend was. Jason gives his friend a wide smile as he helps Izuku down to his feet. When he does he see the clothes Jason is wearing: black track pants with a white striped tennis shoes and a dark blue t-shirt, ending with a long-sleeved black jacket with a logo of a Silver Crusader shield on his back. "You did it! You did it, Izu. You actually did it." In that moment, Takeda Jason looks at his best friend Midoriya Izuku in complete awe and admiration, a profound feeling of proudness radiating in his core at seeing his friend accomplish what most would consider an impossible task. Izuku proved that statement false. "I did it." He weakly smiles at his friend. "Excellent work." They both turn to All Might as he walks up to them, his smile even clearer as the sun hits it. "The both of you. I finished everything." Izuku begins to tell his hero. "All Might, I did it. Do you think I'm ready now?" "Yeah, you did good, kid. I gotta say, I'm impressed. I knew you had it in you, but this is beyond." All Might praises him before pulling out his phone. "Look at this." Both boys look closely as the hero holds up his phone screen to them, showing a picture he took 10 months ago. Haha. Jason chuckles softly at the image, seeing just how different his friend was barely a year ago. Izuku looks on at the picture taken, showing his own weak, crying self and his friend next to him comforting him. "It's you crying 10 months ago." The man smiles just a bit wider as he takes in their looks now as opposed to some time ago. "Look how far you've come. Such improvement, the both of you. Young Takeda, your speed, such grace." Jason smiles a little at the man. "You didn't falter once when you ran atop that pile of garbage, and then saving young Midoriya from hitting the ground. Even I was stunned at how seamless you made it." He turns his attention back to Izuku. "There's still a long road ahead before you can inherit my full power set, but it's starting to look like you can do it." He accentuates his statement by spreading his arms wide, gesturing to the last bit of garbage that Izuku was able to clean up just in time. Izuku smiles at the praise before slowly lifting his shaking hand in front of his face. "All Might, do I deserve this? Are you sure? You put so much time and energy in to help me." How did I end up so lucky? Tears begin pouring from his eyes. He looks up at his hero. To have a trainer like you. And he turns to Jason, a smile forming on his face. To have a great friend like you, Chakun. A friend who's going to be a hero with me. Jason stares at his friend stunned for a second before he returns the smile and places his hand on his friend's shoulder. Because you do deserve it, Izuku. He's right. All Might says as he pats Izuku's back. It was your hard work that did this, not mine and not his. You put in the hard work, so you do deserve this. Now, for your reward, Midoriya Izuku. Yes, sir. With Izuku saying with conviction, Jason steps away from his friend so his trainer can speak to him and him alone. He steps to the side of the both of them, seeing the exchange between the two with a smile. He does look oddly at All Might as the man takes a strand of hair from one of his V hairstyle. Someone told me this once. There's a difference between being lucky and deserving. One's an accident, the other a reward. Never get the two confused. Izuku lets out a small gasp of awe. Take that to heart, young man. This gift. You earned it with your own valiant efforts. Jason is proud of his friend as he adopts a ready look, eager to finally accept the gift he's been working hard for these last several months. Jason is just ready to see just how his friend is going to get his new quirk. Eat this. Huh? I think my dad gave me hearing damage or brain damage. While Izuku just utters a confused word, Jason tries to make sense of the possibility of his hearing or mind deteriorating. To inherit my power, you've got to swallow some of my DNA. That's how it works. All Might quickly explains to the two of them how it is that Izuku needs to get his new quirk. This isn't exactly how I imagined it. Izuku cries out in a bit of disbelief. I feel like my father and my sensei did too much damage to my head. Jason is still not believing he heard right. Come on, there's no time. You'll be late for the exam. Eat. Ah. Eat. Ah. Eat. Ah. Asterisk gulp asterisk. Izuku gets an almost queasy uneasy look as he finally swallows the hair. Jason standing nearby just continues to stare with his mouth agape, stunned on so many levels at seeing a fully grown man force a strand of hair down a boy's throat. What did I just witness? Something that will never leave my mind. He adds the last part quietly to himself. Bloog. All Might, I think you need to lay off the conditioner. Izuku shivers as he says that. Aw, come on. How else do you think I get my hair like this? The hero boasts as he runs his hand through his hair, pulling the strands of his hair back for a second before they snap forward. They both look uneasy for some reason. But enough about that. We need to get you both to the exam. Just as he says that, the number one hero disappears in a small gust of wind. Asterisk honk asterisk honk asterisk. They look at each other before going up the steps to see All Might, now back in his weakened form, sitting in the truck, honking his horn and patting the door on the outside. Let's go. You both need to change, shower up and eat. You got about an hour. Come on, Izu. Jason bolts forward, grabbing his friend's shoes and backpack as he makes for the truck. You talked to your mom, right? Yeah, Izuku replies as he follows after his friend, heading for the passenger side door. She should be done making breakfast when we get there. Awesome. Jason jumps into the back of the truck, buckles into a strap on the back. Your house is closer to Yua. I had dropped off the ingredients to your mom after you left to finish cleaning up the beach, and I got my uniform and pack. We'll get ready at your place before taking the train to the station near Yua. Sounds good, you too. Toshinori agrees wholeheartedly with the plan as he turns on the truck. It's already starting to hit 6:30 am for them currently, and they need to be at the academy by 9 am in order to take the written portion of the exam before getting briefed on the practical portion. You know you didn't have to bring food for yourself. My mom has more than enough to feed you two. And I ain't freeloading. Blame my parents. Toshinori smiles at the banter for the two before driving off. After getting ready, showering, getting dressed, making sure they have their pencils for the written test, scarfing down their food at an abnormally fast pace that makes Midoriya Inko, Izuku's mom, slightly disturbed at the rate they're eating, even contemplating calling Jason's parents to make sure he's eating right. After that, it was a jog in their uniforms to the train station, scheduled to take them to the station closest to Yua. It still takes them a bit to get there, but eventually they make it right to the front gates of Yua Academy. They both stare in awe at the large archways in front of the school, connected via a large stone wall going all around the school. For the school institution itself, they see the main campus building, which is primarily composed of 4 nearly identical large towers at 4 corners. These towers are connected to each other by skybridges, giving the building its unique look from many angles, the letter H from the English language. Whoa, so this is it, huh? Yeah, it is. Looks like we made it just in time. Izuku comments before stepping forward. Jason follows on his friend's left as they slowly make their way forward to the school. Jason doesn't miss the worried look that his friend is sporting, no doubt from all that's been going to get them to this point. Hey! He taps his friend's arm, getting Izuku's attention and making them stop for a second. You okay, man? Yeah. Just, we were in such a hurry to get here, I didn't exactly have a chance to test out my new power. The green-haired boy tells his friend hesitantly. Jason nods at that. Yeah, I get you. We were on a tight timetable after all. How you feeling after, you know? He rubs his throat with an uneasy expression. Izuku turns away from his friend and covers his mouth towards the school. I may have swallowed the hair, but I don't feel like anything great has happened to me yet, he says through his muffled mouth under his hand. Well, I don't know how quirks feel, so we'll just have to wait till it digests, I guess. Yeah. Stupid Deku. Stupid mutt. Both boys freeze and slightly gasp at the familiar grating voice. They turn back to see Bakugo walking up to them, more specifically the school. They just happen to be in the way. Kaken. Get out of my way, now before I set you on fire. He immediately threatens them. Oh yeah, I'd like to see you try. Jason as usual offers his own threat back, standing his ground as he crosses his arms, staring crossly at Bakugo. He stops in front of him, and both boys stare daggers at one another, a bolt of lightning crossing between the two's glares. Not now. Izuku grabs Jason's arms and pulls him out of the way, stressing that they shouldn't ruin their chances of getting in by starting a brawl right on the front steps of the school they are trying hard to get in. Good morning, Kaken. Let's all do our best out there, okay? Good luck. Izuku does what he can to try to rectify the situation before they blow up at each other, one of them literally, even though his voice is still just a bit oozing how scared he is. To both of their surprise, Bakugo doesn't offer any snide remarks, boisterous response, or any other form of acknowledgement to the other two. Jason and Izuku blink a couple times before looking at Bakugo as he walks away. Wait, what? Jason mutters confused, ignoring the other students commenting about Bakugo's encounter with the Sludge villain attack. They're still talking about that. I figured they would have already forgotten that by now. Huh. Have you noticed since that day? Kaken's been taking it easier on us? Izuku steps forward again to Jason's left so both of them are staring at the school side by side. Now that you mention it, Jason begins to recall the last semester of middle school before the year ended, and how in their journey of training to become stronger, Bakugo didn't torment them at all. Well, maybe a few threats anymore, but not really any physical altercations and stuff like that. Which now that Jason thinks he saw some teachers looking a little relieved at that development. Also, holy crap, Izu, that training was no joke. Jason comments to his friend, still mildly surprised at the grip strength his formerly weak friend had, and how almost effortlessly he pulled him to the side. He does good work. Izuku vaguely says, not calling out All Might's name when there are a bunch of people around and clenching his fist and flexing his arm a little. Jason chuckles at that before they both sigh and stare at the school in front of them. We've come a long way, haven't we? We have. Ready to do this? Definitely. They both take their first steps. Thanks to All Might and J-kun, I'm actually going to become a hero, Izuku proudly states in his head, and takes his second step with a smile, and promptly trips, making no effort to catch himself as he heads for the ground. Or I'll just die. Izu. Jason turns around when he sees his friend falling and goes to grab him, then stops. Ooh, he murmurs confused. Huh? So is Izuku as he stares at the ground in front of him. It takes a second for the both of them to notice that he is somehow floating in air. Dude? Jason questions and taps his friend's shoulder, which sends him spinning backwards. Wah, ah, Izuku flails about as he suddenly finds himself staring back the way they came upside down. I'm sorry. Jason yells apologies as he quickly grabs his friend and helps reorient himself back onto his feet. Ha ha! A cute giggle next to them makes them freeze. You two are funny. They turn to the side to see a cute short-haired brunette girl smiling at them. She has brown eyes and sports what might be a permanent blush on her cheeks, wearing a pink and white striped scarf with a darker brown button coat with black leggings, brown shoes, and a dark blue skirt. I stopped you with my quirk. As she says this, she presses all her fingers together, which Izuku notes as his weightless feeling disappears instantly. I'm sorry I didn't ask first, but I figured you wouldn't mind me catching you. It would probably be bad luck to fall on the first day, huh? They both stare at the girl surprised before Jason gets himself together, sort of. Oh, ooh, yes it would be, thank you, we appreciate it. He mentally winces at himself at his sentence, as he rubs the back of his head with his hand. No problem. Isn't this all, way nerve-wracking? She asks with that ever-present smile still on her face. Ooh. Some more never-wracking than others. Jason glances to his friend out of the corner of his eye. Well, guess I'll see you both inside. Bye. Without another word, she bids them farewell and walks into the school. Huh, well, she was nice. Jason comments with a breath of air. He hasn't exactly been social with a lot of people, especially girls their age, except for his friend who eventually moved away. So he was kind of surprised to talk to one so soon. Izu? Holy whoa, I just talked to a girl. Ooh, technically you didn't actually talk to her. Ha ha, ha ha ha, ah ha 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 ha. Jason smiles and shakes his head at his friend's demeanor before grabbing his shirt and pulling him. Come on, lady killer. Let's go before we're too late. Izuku still has the smile on his face as he's dragged. It didn't take long for them to find the rooms they needed to get to for their written exam. While their physical training left them deathly tired on more than one occasion, they did not slouch in their academic studies either. Neither of them felt too worried about the test as they took it, their knowledge allowing them to answer quickly and swiftly with confidence in their answers. It's the practical they were more worried about. Both of them had made it to the auditorium, where they and all the other participants of the practicals were going to be briefed on how it was going to go down. Unfortunately, depending on when a person put in their application determined where exactly they were going to sit in the large multi-layered seating stands of the auditorium. Izuku was quick in turning in his application, but Jason only turned his in days after his friend. So Jason is centered around to the right side of the auditorium, a level above Izuku and Bakugo, which they both are sitting next to one another, with the latter seething at sitting next to the person he second hates. A large screen appears on the wall in front of everyone. Of the lights dim down, drowning the audience participants in mild darkness, while illuminating the stage with the screen bearing the school's UA logo, a podium, and the man standing behind it with his back turned to everyone. What's up, UA candidates? Thanks for tuning in to me, your school DJ. Come on and lemme hear ya. The man, also known as Present Mike, wearing a black rocker's jacket with red pads on his elbows and black pants, red belt, thick black boots, a bulky speaker system around his neck with headphones on his ears, white-rimmed glasses with golden yellow triangle lenses, and a large spiked-up blonde hairstyle with a small blonde mustache. Gets only silence from everyone attending. Keeping it mellow, huh? He tries to salvage the awkwardness. That's fine. I'll skip straight to the main show. Let's talk about how this practical exam is going to go down, okay? Are you ready? Yeah. He gets only silence again. Oh my goodness. It's the voice hero, Present Mike. So cool. Izuku gushes hardcore at seeing the pro hero. I listen to his radio show every day of the week. It's so crazy nuts that all the UA teachers are pro heroes. Will you shut up? Bakugo does not like the fanboy speaking next to him. Like your application said, today you rockin' boys and girls will be out there conducting 10-minute mock battles in super hip urban settings. Gird your loins, my friends. After I drop the mic here, you'll head to your specified battle center. Sound good? As Present Mike says this, the screen behind him changes to several more color-coded squares labeled from A to G. He still gets silence. Okay? Izuku ignore the silence and look at their cards in front of them. I see. They're splitting us up so we can't work with any of our friends. Bakugo surmises. Yeah, you're right. Our examining numbers are one after the other, but we're assigned to different battle centers. Izuku notes the slight differences between their cards, where Izuku is number 2234, while Bakugo is 2233, and they are in battle centers B and A respectively. Get your eyes off my card. Izuku flinches at the tone. Damn. I was really looking forward to crushing you and the mutt. Of course. Bakugo gets an evil grin as he stares at Izuku out of the corner of his eyes. This means the mutt won't be there to carry you through this, huh? Izuku freezes at that bit of news. That's right. If they are going to separate us from the same schools, then J-kun and I might not be in the same battle center together. I have a new power now, and if I can get the hang of it during the exam I have a shot. But J-kun, he glances over in the direction his friend is sitting. Okay, let's check out your targets. Everyone looks forward again as their instructor speaks again, as different numbered silhouettes appear on the screen around the picture of a city. There are 3 types of foe villains in every battle center. You'll earn points based on their level of difficulty, so better choose wisely. Your goal in this trial is to use your quirk. Izuku can almost feel Jason scoff at that. To raise your score by shredding these foe villains like a mid-song guitar solo. But check it. Make sure you're keeping things heroic. Attacking other examinees is a yua no-no, ya dig? Now Bakugo can feel someone glaring at him, making his jerk his vision to the right, as he knows exactly who it is. Excuse me, sir, but I have a question. A boy with dark blue hair, square glasses, and a tan suit jacket with a blue and light blue striped tie stands up and raises his hand. Hit me. On the printout, you've listed 4 types of villains, not 3. A light shine on the boy as he points out the difference on the sheet of paper and from the presentation. With all respect, if this is an error on the official UA materials, it is shameful. We are exemplary students. We expect the best from Japan's most notable school. A mistake such as this won't do. He states with a bit of authority in his voice and slight annoyance at how things are going. Additionally, you with the unkempt hair. He turns right around and calls out Izuku. Huh? Izuku mutters in confusion as he points to himself. You've been muttering this entire time. Stop that. If you can't bother to take this seriously, leave. You're distracting the rest of us. Hey! Everyone flinches at the sudden loud voice, cutting off anyone about to laugh. Izuku and Bakugo turn to the right to see Jason standing up and glaring at the guy who called out Izuku. Seems to me you're the one distracting us the most, buddy. We're here to listen about the exam, not you criticizing other students. Park it. Now. He shouts at him with a twinge of anger in his voice. He's standing up and leaning over the desk and pointing at the glasses-haired kid before he straightens up and sits back down. A pink-haired girl talking to him soon after. The boy in glasses, though, remains standing and looks offended at the tone taken against him so soon and loudly. Jackin. Izuku sighs at his friend's action, grateful for him helping from far away, but tired at him causing a commotion so quickly. That damn mud. Okay, examinees. Cool your jets, please. Thank you for your request, examinee 7111. Present Mike calms everyone down with a small wave of his hands. The fourth villain type is worth 0 points. That guy asked just an obstacle we'll be throwing in your way. There's one in every battle center. Think of it as a hurdle you should try to avoid. It's not that it can't be beaten, but there's kinda no point. I recommend my listeners try to ignore it and focus on the ones topping the charts. Thank you very much. Please, continue. The glasses-wearing boy bows and sits back down. That's all I got for you today. I'll sign off with a little present. A sample of our school motto. Present Mike continues speaking to try to hype everyone up. As General Napoleon Bonaparte once laid down, a true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes each time. Now that's a tasty soundbite. You ready to go beyond? Let's hear it plus ultra. As he says that, the words appear on the screen dramatically. Good luck. He was expecting people to yell out the motto, but obviously he was met with silence again. Meanwhile, Izuku is shaking in anticipation as he holds his paper tighter with a tight smile on his face. Hope you practiced hitting more than just books. Izuku smiles as he glances to the side where his friend is. Good luck, Jaken. Just like that, their training has finished, and they're all ready to get started on the entrance exam's practical mock battle test. It's going to be a tough one for them for sure, especially for Jason, what with no combat quirk for himself to speak of. Gonna have to go at it with his wits, and what brawn he can make use of to his advantage. As was explained in the chapter, Jason is gonna have to make use of different fighting styles in order to take down his opponents, and needed to train his cardio stamina in order for him to outlast his opponents. If you've already read the manga and seen the anime, then you know there's going to be a lot of enemies with strength quirks that's going to put any form of muscles that Jason can bulk up on to shame in seconds. He's going to need to be fast and smart to fight most of his opponents. From this point on, I'm also going to be answering some reviews at the end of chapters. I'll still send PMs to the reviewers if there's a question that some of you want answered, but I may give the same response here in the author notes, or maybe a slightly different answer when time passes. Guest CH. 4. Glad you liked it. I can assure you that Jason is going to make extensive use of support items in his time at UA and in his hero career. What those are, I'll leave it as a surprise, but I'm hoping a lot of people will be both surprised and excited to see the equipment he uses and who makes them. Finale's 1E995. He's definitely going to have to pull off some hardcore Batman-esque moves if he's going to keep up with other powerful quirk users. I haven't seen the main show manga touch up on the lives of quirkless people and all besides Izuku at the beginning, so going at the story the whole way through with a quirkless character is something I was looking forward to doing. Having Jason take the opportunities to blow everyone's minds, in both the readers and the people in MHA, with his skills, despite being quirkless, is something I am all too happy to write up. Also, you're right about Hagakure. I have no idea how she was able to beat the robots during the entrance exam. I'm going to assume she maybe tricked some of them into destroying each other by placing herself between them and all that, and maybe making up the majority of her points by saving some examinees here and there. That's the best guess I can come up with. Glad you liked it, and I hope you can continue to keep your interest.